Stand up, New York Giant fans. Wasn't going to go live today. We're going to do our podcast. Mike, if you aren't aware, we have a new podcast on Apple. It's called Mike and Tana Talking Sports. So if you want to check that out, but we figured with all the news that came out as of late with the Giants, and we're kind of trying to save the offseason content for the next podcast, we figured we'd go live today on YouTube. Had a couple people ask me when we're going to do it live again on YouTube. So we do it today. Obviously, we got a couple things we're going to talk about, and we're going to feed off the chat like we always do. But, Mike, how you feeling after that embarrassing loss yesterday?
Well, I just asked you, I said, is that the worst Giants game you've ever watched? And we both agree it's up there. It's not the worst, but it's up there. I mean, you brought up the Carolina Panthers 05 playoff game. I'm thinking back to one now, the 2010 game, the game after the Deshaun Jackson punt return. We played the Packers, right? And they blew us out like 45-10. That was a rough one for me,
Good
too.
Good call. Yeah.
But it's up there. Just
the Eagles game, too, has got to be in terms of the most painful.
Yeah.
But in terms of the worst, yeah, for me, when I thought about it, it's the Panthers game. And maybe it's because it was a playoff game and it was Eli's first playoff game. And you're going with higher expectations. Then they couldn't get it over midfield the entire game. But this game was painful to sit through. And I'll tell you what, if I wasn't streaming the game, I would have been flipping the red zone. I mean, my God, the run blocking was actually good for once. Saquon Barkley was good, but outside of that, I mean, Lorenzo Carter played well.
Yeah.
And I think he's playing for a contract, but I know he's coming off the injury, so maybe he's getting back into form. Who knows? And if he's not back with the Giants, maybe we get a pretty good compensation pick because maybe some team does take a flyer on him. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out in the offseason, being that we're not going to have a whole lot of money. But overall, this game was just as bad as it gets. And you expect to going in, it was going to be tough. Glennon fumbles on the first play. They passed for negative 10 yards, Mike.
How? How? 2021 NFL, how?
Negative 10 yards. How is that even possible? But let's say hello to a couple people, and then we'll jump into it, and we'll feed off you guys as usual. What's up, Gary, man? What's going on there? Jeremy, TG Fishing, Cletus in the chat, Evan in the chat, Brian in the chat, Ezekiel Elliott. Oh, God. No, man. Thank you for being a member, Zeke. Eric Harrison in the chat, Bark Nasty in the chat, Mr. Fantasy Football, Nikki in the chat. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it. Joey Lutz in the chat. And Nikki said she enjoys, she prefers YouTube to the podcast. We're going to mix it up. We'll do a little bit on, maybe in the future we'll do our podcast on YouTube. Or maybe we'll premiere it. Who knows? But it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. Mike approached me with the idea. So let's do it. And we're going to have some broad NFL to talk about as well with the playoffs coming up. But Mike, man, I'm sure you heard the press conference last night.
Yeah. Saw some of it.
What do you think about it?
It's weird. We got mixed reactions from fans. You have people that are like, I like what he said. I like the passion. It's fiery. I get all that. And it also came off as a guy that's really trying to save his job, which I get. I said that last night as well, doing my post-game reaction. I go, look, if I'm Joe Judge, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to hold on to that job that feels like it's slipping away game by game here. So I get what he's saying, but a lot of it was like, just felt like there was some lies in there. We saw, what's his name, Ryan Clark call him out on ESPN this morning over some of the lies, talked about the 2018 Patriots saving his job. And it's just stuff that didn't really make sense. He says he has guys from last year's team that are calling him twice a week that say they miss playing for the Giants. Like, I don't really buy into that either. So there were some questionable things in there. I do enjoy the passion that he put out there. He said today he does not regret anything he said. So, but I think Art Stapleton tweeted this is the first time he ever saw a Judge go on like a 10, 11-minute rant, and it really felt like he was trying to save his job. So he's doing what he has to do. I don't necessarily blame the guy. It didn't really give me much confidence that Joe Judge is the guy going forward. But, me and you sit here now. You just said you're 60-40. Judge might get fired, and I'm kind of the same way, honestly. I don't know. Like a few weeks ago, we thought he was pretty safe. But now, after the embarrassing losses and us scoring under 13 points in 6 of the past 7 games, it's like, okay, this is not good. And the Giants are getting outright embarrassed. 29-3 to the Chicago Bears, a team that has a head coach that's going to get fired in a couple weeks, and they're not a good team either. To lose that badly is it's an embarrassment. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it seems like the door is now open as compared to what it was just a month ago.
Yeah, I can't fault Judge for doing what he did. I mean, if it was me, like I said in my video today, I'd probably do the same thing. The guy's trying to save his job. He's trying to speak to the fan base. He's trying to speak to Mara, and he's trying to demonstrate some kind of progress because he certainly can't demonstrate it with the wins and losses that he's able to bring this football team. And he's claiming that he's cleaning up the culture. And I know Giants fans are sick and tired of hearing that word. I do think, like you said, it was refreshing to at least see something different. rather than the robotic press conferences that he's given us all year. He did come out and show some emotion, but it's going to be very hard, I think, to convince this fan base overall. There's definitely members of the fan base that want to bring Judge back. We talked about it before. As I've said and as you've said, I think we're both leaning that if we were making the decision, we move on from Judge. But at the same time, we're not going to be fuming if they keep Judge. As long as they bring in an outside GM, I'll be okay with it. I'm not saying it's my preference. I'll be okay with it. As long as that general manager is making the decisions.
Yeah, it just, whoever the coach is next year, it just feels like a sitting duck situation because I just don't think the Giants are going to be a good team next year. I don't see how it's really possible unless they trade for a great quarterback. So, next year it might be another down year. And to me, the most important part, though, is bringing in that good GM. I think that would help this team out a lot more than perhaps bringing back Joe Judge for an extra year. We talked about it. Judge has every excuse in the book. The Giants are one of the most injured teams in football. In my opinion, it's not the only reason they're bad, but he can definitely use that to his advantage and say, well, how can I win games with Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm? So He can say that as well. I just feel like it's delaying the inevitable. I've said that for a while now. I don't think Judge is a great head coach. I hope he proves me wrong still. I want the guy to work out, but just based on the things we've seen so far, the evidence, I don't really see him doing a complete 180 next year. So, whether he's fired this year or next offseason, I feel like it's going to happen eventually, unless there's a big turnaround next year, an unexpected one. But to me, the most important part is getting the right GM. So, if you ask me, would you rather keep Judge and have a great GM, or would you rather fire Judge and have a average GM? I'd take the great GM.
Of course, you always go with the great GM. Yeah.
Yeah. So
because we need to build this team the right way. That's the most important thing for me right now. True Rappler says, I feel quarterback competition will be beneficial for DJ this year. We were actually, ironically enough, talking about that before we went live. You said that you think that's one of the biggest needs this offseason in free agency, being that we don't have a lot of money. And I agree. I mean, I think they need to do it. Whether or not you're a person that's completely sold on Daniel Jones, which most people are not, but there are still a handful of Giants fans that you think he is going to be great long-term, regardless with the injury concerns that this guy has had. You cannot roll out the red carpet next year. And maybe bringing in competition, does benefit Daniel Jones. Who knows? But it's regardless of whether or not you think it's going to benefit him or not, it's something you cannot go into next season with Mike Glennon. And for the people that, I was talking about this with people in my Discord. For the people that are like, who cares? Just roll Jones out there. If they lose, we're going to get a high draft pick anyway. The way I look at it, Mike, is this. If you could bring in, I'm not saying you got to bring in like the creme de la creme, but if you could bring in Brissett, or if you could bring in Trubisky, like a legitimate backup. If Jones does go down, you also have to think about the further development of the other players on your offense. Like right now, Kadarius Toney is not, even though he's not playing, but if he was, he wouldn't be progressing with Mike Glennon throwing him footballs. So I think you need, especially with Daniel Jones' recent injury history, you need a competent backup for this New York Giants football team next year.
Yeah, there's people that have the Bryce Young aspirations that just want to be like a one-win team next year. I get all that, but you're right. You can't really stunt the development of other players, and this hopefully will be a team with maybe 1 or 2 or 3 new offensive linemen next year. So if you have a terrible quarterback behind those guys, that would not be good for them either. You want to have a good running game, of course. See if Saquon's back, but I just think having a competent backup quarterback, it's not only just to challenge Daniel Jones, but it's for moments like this where he's injured and you're just left with like nothing. Like the Giants are just basically unwatchable these days. I don't know why I watch them anymore. Honestly, they're
you love the team. That's why.
They're just very close to unwatchable, though. It's at that level. This is the worst Giants team I've seen in my lifetime, at least, and I'm sure many other agree. So, I just think this team would benefit if they can afford to sign a Brissett or a Bridgewater or someone like that. Just give Daniel Jones the necessary competition. And sometimes competition brings out the best in people. Remember when Jordan Love was drafted by the Packers and Aaron Rodgers turned his career into something even better somehow. Like sometimes it motivates guys and sometimes it's not a good thing. But I think it's necessary for this team. Jones has had 3 straight seasons now of being injured, some worse than others, but we've seen it now. He's not really the most durable guy in the world. So why not bring in a good backup quarterback? Now, the problem, as you said, is the lack of cap space. The cap should grow this year, of course, but how much is the question?
They already said. I think it's going to be $208 million.
And what was it last year? Because I have no idea.
It was about 185.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Yeah.
Yeah, we only have right now, I mean, it fluctuates depending on what website you look at, and they're constantly adjusting the figures. But right now, we have about $3 or $4 million of space. But you got to figure there's going to be like 12 to 15 allocated to the draft, being that we have 2 first-round picks. But there's a lot of players we could cut. I think there's ways they could free up $25 million or so in free agency to bring in a backup. And I think that's one of the things they have to do, in my personal opinion. And we'll see what they do in the offseason. Let's get to a couple of these though. Christopher Hayward says, "Hi guys, do you think Joe has been listening to Bad Dog calling him the clown show?" Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know about Bad Dog specifically, but what I'll say is maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I have no idea. But what I will say is Joe Judge definitely does it. He definitely hears things. There's no doubt about it. How could you be a member of the New York Giants and not hear what goes on in the media? They may pretend that they don't, whether it's somebody on YouTube, whether it's somebody on Twitter, whether it's one of the beat reporters. They want to get a pulse of the fan base. And make no mistake about it, John Mara, especially with some of the things you've seen as of late, Mike, you're active on Twitter. You've seen all these like troll accounts from like former scouts, and Chris Pettit had a troll account. Like, these are people that work with inside the New York Giants organization. So there's no doubt about it. I think Mara's hearing what the fan base has to say right now about the state of the franchise.
Yeah, and as you said, sometimes when the fans are outraged, it speaks to John Mara. We talked about how the fans were kind of involved with keeping Eli Manning around and maybe getting Pat Shurmur fired. And this could be the third one here of getting Joe Judge fired. I mean, I think, most players do have Twitter accounts. Joe Judge is on Twitter, as we know. I think Joe Judge brought up, actually, he sees stuff on social media, which is pretty much Twitter, in my opinion. So he probably sees some stuff. And a lot of times as fans, we put out tweets and we're probably like, who's listening? But who knows? Maybe people are listening. And now there's people that are former players that are very much involved with talking to fans. Of course, Carl Banks is there as well. He's in those spaces
He's
sometimes.
Active,
he's definitely active. So, there's some guys like that have say with what goes on with the Giants, or can report to John Mara, hey, I hear this and hear that. So what they're hearing right now is definitely not good. So the Giants are right now a dumpster fire. They're as bad as the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. So there's not much positives you can put out there about this Giants team. So we're fed up, of course. If the Giants were a great team in 2017, 2018, and now they just have like a slight fall off, it's more understandable. But a decade minus 1 year of incompetence is going to get the fans to speak out. And we've had enough of it. And I think this organization needs a lot of changes from, the top down. Obviously, John Mara can't go anywhere, but people below him, a lot of them have to go. And I don't think he'll make those necessary changes, but that's just what I think has to happen. But I'm concerned it's not going to happen. But we'll see how the next 2 weeks play out. Hopefully we have some good results.
I got a question for you, because I've been asked this a lot over my last couple of streams. You said this is the worst Giants season since you've been watching the Giants?
Yeah, since 05
I think it's
or
2017.
So.
I think it's 2017.
That's
Now,
fair.
I can definitely understand people who think it's this year. But 2017, you're coming off the playoffs. You get 3 wins. The team completely quits. You had the Eli Manning debacle, and the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl for the first time.
Right.
But this is close. This is damn close to. And what I will say is the product they're putting on the field right now, currently, with all the injuries they've had, is the worst product I've probably ever seen.
Yeah. Like roster-wise, up and down, I think this is the worst team I've seen. Like that's, at least
when
in
you
2017.
factor in all the injuries that we've sustained.
Yeah, at least they had future Hall of Fame quarterback Eli Manning still there. And who else was playing? Jeez, I don't know. Was Landon Collins? No, he was out too at that point late in the year. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of injuries there as well. But at least we had Eli Manning to watch. Going from Eli to Mike Glennon, it's like, I don't want to watch this anymore. So.
Yeah, when you look at it that way, yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
And Nelly, thank you so much. I got to meet you at the Giants game. Thank you so much for popping in. Tane and Mike, love you both. By the way, if you guys have not done so, please subscribe to MikeTooNice. I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these on his channel. Sometimes we'll go YouTube, sometimes we'll do podcasts, whatever, but definitely go check him out. But I'm honestly just at a loss as to how we fix this team. I had to watch that game in utter disbelief. How do you guys think we fix this team? It's not a quick fix, Nelly.
I don't know.
It's not a quick fix, and I know a lot of people that are subscribers of ours, they're going to hate me saying the word patience, because Giants fans don't want to be patient. But I don't think you could fix this overnight. I don't think it's a quick fix. I think we're in a really bad spot. But I think the first way to fix it is to bring in an outside GM. That's where you start, square one. Outside GM, you get somebody in here that's going to bring in new ideas to this franchise, not somebody who's worked from within inside the organization, not somebody with ties to Mara, bringing a smart mind that is educated in terms of the modern NFL, somebody who's not scared to use analytics. And for me, outside, and we had this conversation on Twitter the other day when I got somebody that always comes at me on Twitter, and you actually were in the conversation as well. Sure. For me, it starts at the line. Now, like we said in the conversation, if there's a no-doubt quarterback prospect, you always take them, regardless of what your team looks like. But if there is not, I think you have to start at the line. That's what the New York Giants have to get right. before anything else. I'm not saying ignore everything else, but that has to be the primary focus because that makes everything else on the team better. And it's something we haven't had for 12 years, but we've been saying that. Gettleman said it when he took the job. It has not been rectified. But that to me is where, if I was a GM, that's what I'm looking at. But that to me is where it starts. And people probably don't want to hear that because it's not a quick fix. It's not Kenny Pickett. And they're like, oh, he's the next Joe Burrow that could just come in here and make everything look great. And I hope that would be the case if we drafted a guy like Kenny Pickett. But realistically speaking, for sustained success and being able to put forth, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Mike. Philadelphia Eagles don't have a great team, but they got 9 wins. Why? Because they could freaking block. They've got a really good offensive line. They're able to run the ball at will. And I think that's where the Giants have to start. I'm not saying, if they're convinced one of these quarterbacks are incredible, take them. But if not, they've got to get that situated. And of course, they got to add some pieces on the defense as well.
There's 2 ways they can go about it. It's either the quick fix is trade for a franchise quarterback, whether Russ is available, whether Derek Carr or something's available. You can go that route, which, I don't want to go the Derek Carr route. The Russell Wilson route, I definitely can get behind. Derek Carr doesn't do it for me personally. But there's also the patience route of what you just said. If they don't like a quarterback in this draft, you have 5 picks in the top 100. You can spend 2 or 3 of those picks on offensive line. Try to fix your offensive line in one offseason. You have Andrew Thomas, who's looks like a franchise left tackle. So you have that position filled out. So the patience route is not fun. You don't want to hear that as a fan. But it's probably the best way to have the Giants set up for sustained success in 2023, 2024, 2025, and beyond. So
you just got to do it right.
Exactly. We've had high picks go to offensive linemen before, and they always end up being bust outside of Thomas so far. But we talked about Flowers and Rich Berg and spending money on Solder. It's like ridiculous. We don't get it right. So you got to get the right talent evaluator. You mentioned get the right GM, evaluate the talent. It's supposed to be a great offensive line class. You have 2 top 10 picks. You get the offensive line right. And then by 2023, you can look to attack and get a quarterback. You might have some more draft picks. You can trade up and try and get someone or trade it for a veteran once again. So the way I look at it is the Giants will not be competitive by 2023 at least, so that's the downside. But next year, you just got to set the foundation, right? This team was set back. We know that. Gettleman came in. He tried to win and rebuild. Then he went all out rebuild. Then he went all in this past offseason. So the Giants are just screwed up right now. But they probably need at least 1 year to hit the reset and get things going. And by 2023, hopefully we start to see the progression because right now we're not seeing the progress. That's the problem with Joe Judge. You want to see progress, and we're seeing regression. That's kind of why fans are kind of out on Joe Judge right now, which I get. But by 2023, at least, is when I want to start seeing the progress.
Yeah, I'm with you. And if the thing is, if Judge comes back, though, and that's why I feel like he's like almost a lame duck coach, unless this team, you can't sell progress next year if Judge comes back.
Yeah.
For the GM, you can, but not for the head coach. You can't sell that. This team, if Judge comes back, you need at least an 8 or 9 win football team. And that's why if it's me at this point, I'm probably leaning just start over.
Right.
Manny, thank you very much, man. For 15 weeks, fans want more from Judge. He finally breaks down and gives it to us. And Esiason tells him to shut. I didn't hear Esiason. I think he was backing his players, period, not trying to save his job, deserves one more. Manny, what I'll say, I didn't, in my critique, I wasn't overly critical. At least I didn't think about Joe Judge. I said I probably would have done the same thing he did in terms of what he did. For me, that doesn't necessarily mean that it should save his job, but I thought it was a little bit refreshing that he actually came out and, we, like you just said, Manny, we're critical of Judge every week. Oh, he doesn't say anything. He finally came out and said something, and he tried to defend himself, and at least he did that. Now, maybe we want to hear him bash the team in the way they perform, but you're not going to get that from Judge. Judge is the type of coach that's going to back his players. That's the way he's been since he's taken the job, and that's basically what he said yesterday. He's going to back his players. He's going to work on things from behind the scenes, but he's not the type of coach that's going to go to the media and say that his players are trash. And I respect that. I don't want my coach to go to the media and say that players are trash. So I think that's something that you should keep in-house. So I didn't really have too much of an issue in terms of what he said yesterday. The way that I just looked at it, Mike, was he was trying to save his job.
Yeah. That was my biggest takeaway was like, okay, this guy realizes his job's not safe. That was the biggest takeaway for me. I I don't really have much of a problem with what he said. There were some parts, as I mentioned, that were like really questionable. He was talking about guys don't have golf clubs in front of their lockers. Like, okay, like
And
what do
then the
I care?
vacation thing I thought was a slight at the boat trip about Odell
Yeah, yeah.
Beckham. And then you had and he said something else too that you
Oh,
could tell.
punching players, or that was like a shot at Washington for them punching
Yeah,
each
he
other.
took a couple of shots at former coaches. That was that I
Yeah, yeah,
disagree with.
that's it.
That I
He's like,
disagree.
oh, this is not a clown show. I'm like, really? It seems like a clown show, Joe. I don't know about that. So I don't know if there's a lack of self-awareness, but it's like he was trying to just say, I'm better than Shermer and McAdoo. Keep me. Like, that's kind of what it came off as. I'm like,
Yeah,
all right, well, I
sounds
don't
like
really
stuck up.
care.
Sounds almost like
Yeah.
stuck up.
It's like when fans are bragging that Daniel Jones is better than like Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. It's like, okay, that's supposed to be the case. You are supposed to be a better quarterback. And Joe Judge, you're supposed to be a better head coach than the previous two not so good head coaches we had here. So that's when I'm like, all right, the comparisons, they're cute and all, but it's not doing it for me. So I didn't really care for that stuff too much.
Yeah, I will say that's fair. But in terms of him coming out, and I didn't have an issue with it. A couple of things from within inside the conversation, I guess, yeah, you could be critical about.
It had to be said. It was getting to that
exactly.
point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was like building up. It was like a volcano. CY, man, thank you very much. You think we should just ride out Jones and Judge and tank next year for a top pick and get Bryce Young? Love Young, reminds me of Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray mix, in my opinion. We could say that going into next year like that. In I guess it makes logical sense if you feel Bryce Young is going to be the next great quarterback. But there's no way, and I say this all the time, there is no way a team's going to go into the year intentionally tanking. Now, maybe ownership will set that mandate with the general manager, and he tries to say, think about the future. But the players on the team and the coach are not going to go out there and intentionally coach and play to lose football games. So I don't think this team next year, Mike, if I'm being completely honest, because you're not going to be able to trade away any of these high salaries on this team, unless we are completely destroyed by injuries again next year, which I don't think will happen. We'll have injuries because we're the Giants, but we're not going to have as many as we've had. Like we have the most in the league.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll have that much bad luck again next year. I don't think this team's gonna be bad enough to get the first overall pick. I just don't. I really don't, and maybe I'll be wrong again, but I don't think so. I don't think we're gonna end up with the number one pick. I think, but what I will say, and it may not be Bryce Young, maybe it's another quarterback, but if there's a quarterback they really like in 2023 and Jones does not progress, let's take that into the equation as well. I think you got to use whatever power you have to move up and get one of those quarterbacks in the 2023 draft class, if that is the plan of action. But I don't think we're going to be bad enough to get the number one pick. I really don't.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of in favor of trading back in this draft to kind of set yourself up for 2023. And if you want Bryce Young that badly, you have the necessary assets to trade up. But you can't go into a season and have the mission of being 0-17. Like, there's teams that came into this year. The Eagles are a perfect example. They have 3 first-round picks. They were blatantly supposed to not be a good team this year, and they made the playoffs. Like, anything can happen in football. We know that. So you can't go into a season expecting to get the first pick. It's not really how it works. Could they just bring back Judge and Jones next year and just try to run it back and hopefully guys stay healthy and these free agent signings actually work out? Sure, but I would not expect much change personally. I don't, because to expect Jones, Barkley, Tony, Galladay to all stay healthy in one season, it's like, what are the chances of that? Like, you're probably
if you're expecting everybody to stay healthy, you're asking for way too much.
So it's like, how realistic is this expectation of being a good team next year? That's my concern about it. But as you said, I don't think we're bad enough to be the worst team in football, but we're also not good enough to be a playoff team. We'll be somewhere from the typical 5 to 12 slot or something. I don't know. I just don't see us being like that bad to be the first pick.
Yeah, because we're not even that bad this year with all the injuries we've had. So I do think, like you said, and thank you again, Siwy, man. I appreciate CY. I do think, like you said, in an ideal world, and I watched a little bit of your video today. I didn't want to watch all of it because I'm going to make a video similar to that once Gettleman retires. But in an ideal world, I would love to trade down in the ideal circumstance because, like you said, you get a little bit more ammunition to go up and get your quarterback if need be in 2023. And I think it's something that as an organization we got to think about. Mark, man, he says, who would your first choice be for the new coach and GM be? All right, if it's Fantasyland, the 2 GMs who I don't think will ever take this job that I'd have interest in, or Dodds, who I know you really like, and Borgonzi of the Chiefs. Those are the 2 guys that I really like that I talked about in my video. As far as a head coach, I said it in 2019 before they did the coaching search, Jim Harbaugh. That would be a guy I'd be really interested in. Now, if you brought in Harbaugh, I think he's the type of guy that would need full control. I think he would need to be the general manager and the head coach, if I had to guess. But those would be mine. What about you, Mike?
Well, yeah, Ed Dodds is always going to be my first choice. I just don't know, as you said, how realistic it is, and we can't be in fantasy land here. I watched some of that Joe Shane guy from the Bills.
Oh, from the Bills, yeah. People were talking him up.
Yeah, I watched a couple of videos on him. I like his style, so I can get behind that as a fan. That kind of feels like my real. I watched Monty Ostenford as well. I'm fine with him. I kind of like Shane a bit more, so I guess Joe Shane's my realistic guy I want, but the guy I really want is Ed Dodds, obviously. For head coach, I don't know. And that's why I'm always on the fence about like firing Judge. Like, I don't think Judge is a good head coach, but I also don't know who the necessary replacement coach is. Like, I don't know if there's anybody out there. Like, you have the Leftwiches of the world, you have the Brian Dables, you have guys like that, but are they going to be good head coaches? Like, you're kind of taking another risk there. But someone asked me this on Twitter earlier. If you can sign up to have Joe Shane and Brian Dable as compared to what we have now with, Judge and Gettleman, I'm taking the Bills guys for sure. So if it's Dable and Shane, I can sign up for it. But I just don't know about head coach. Like, there's nobody that really catches my eye, and I'm like, I really want this guy to be head coach. I have no idea, but I would take Brian Dable if he came with Joe Shane. And, they come from the same team. It's a good organization, so maybe that's something that could work out for the Giants.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we both will form a better opinion on once we start to see the names, specifically with the general manager. We don't know if they're moving on from Judge, but once we see the names of the guys that they're actually bringing in, but at least the vibe that I get is I think the Giants, it's going to be a much more advanced search this time around with the general manager. I don't think it's going to be 3 in-house guys and Louis Riddick. I think it's going to be. I think they're going to bring in like 8, 9 guys. I think it's going to be an advanced search, and I hope that's the case. That's all I ask for as a fan this offseason. I'm not going to be a guy that it comes out and says everything's got to be picture perfect. It's got to be exactly the way I want. If you say you need to keep Judge, as long as you bring in a guy who I feel is an ultra qualified outside GM, and I know in the back of my head if things don't improve, you'll bring in a new head coach the following year, I'll be okay with it. It might not be but that is at the bare minimum what I need as a fan this year. I need a legitimate outside general manager. I don't want you hiring. If they hire Kevin Abrams, I may delete my channel. I may get that pissed off, Mike. They better not hire Kevin Abrams. I'll tell you that. That's just my opinion on the matter. But you got to at least bring in an outside GM. That's the way I stand right now. And hopefully they do a good, thorough search. Well,
that's the part I hate is that they're limiting their options if they say we're keeping Joe Judge. Like, which GMs want to work with Joe Judge?
That's what I
don't know. Like, that's Like I ask my audience all the time. Let me ask you, Chris. Put you in those shoes. Let's say you were Ed Dodds, right? And I'm offering you to come interview for the Giants GM job, but I tell you have to stick with Joe Judge. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no. If I'm Ed Dodds, I'm saying go to hell.
All right.
If I'm Ed Dodds, I'm in a good situation with the Colts. I've turned down jobs before. Why the hell am I taking a job for a team that won 4 games last year that has cap situation with Joe? And you're telling me who my head coach is going to be?
Yeah.
Goodbye. I'll wait for a better opportunity. So no, I would not. I would not go running at that opportunity, which is what I've said on my channel as well.
Yeah, we it's like we know what to do, but John Mayer's not going to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like my thing is, if the new GM wants to keep Joe Judge, we're fine with that, me and you. It's just you can't put that on the new GM. There can't be a mandate. You can't say you have to stick with Joe Judge. If the Giants love a GM and he wants to work with Joe Judge, okay. If the new GM wants to work with Daniel Jones, okay, fine. But let that guy make the decision, not John Mara. That's why when I got pissed 2 weeks ago when that report came out that Judge and Jones are back next year and they're making this decision without a new GM. So obviously it's probably coming from John Mara. So that's when I'm like, why are we still letting John Mara make the critical decisions for the Giants? I don't want this to be the case. Like, the Giants need that outside voice. And if the outside voice, the new GM, wanted to work with Judge and keep Daniel Jones, then fine. That's okay. But don't let it come from John Mara, because I don't know about everyone in here, but I do not trust that man to make the right decisions. I'm
with you, man. That to me has been, I think, the biggest problem of this team for the last 10 years has been Mara. But that's the one spot we can't change. Matthew says, did you see Caleb Williams is transferring? I did not. I think I heard that, though. Somebody said that he was probably going to. But news to me, Matthew, man. Thank you for letting me know. Mike says, and let me just make sure I didn't skip anybody. Mike says to Mike, for me, I would 100% trade back on both picks, take the best available offensive lineman, and enter the 2023 draft with multiple first-round picks to move up and get your franchise quarterback. All right, I'll speak on that first. First thing I'll say, Mike, in an ideal world, I like where your head's at. This ain't an ideal world. This is not a mock draft scenario. This is also a quarterback draft class that's very thin to begin with. I don't think it's realistic to expect that you're going to be able to find 2 trade partners in the first round where you'd be able to get 2 future first-round picks. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. So ideally, sure, but I don't see that happening. I don't think the Giants will end up trading back twice. They may end up trading back once. I'm not going to go into the draft in the first round, at least, expecting to trade back twice. But in an ideal world, sure. If you get 2 future first-round picks and still get a good interior offensive lineman and a tackle with those 2 picks, that's a great plan. But I just, unless you're on PFN mock draft simulator, I don't see that happening in the real draft.
Yeah, I'm fine trading back one of those picks. It's hard to believe they'd find 2, as you said, trade partners to trade back both times. But yeah, if they can trade back once and just set up for the 2023 class and have more picks to get a quarterback, then that's great. I'm fine with that. But to expect to trade back both it's kind of unrealistic. It could happen
in this draft because it's the quarterbacks aren't that highly regarded.
If it was like the 2018 class where you had like 4 quarterbacks in the top 10, then sure. But like, I don't think this is that type of class. You know what I mean? So I don't see that being the case.
Yeah, but that's an ideal scenario for me. You go and you get maybe even still get Linderbaum and you get a tackle and you get 2 future first. That'd be great. J Mad J says, if Judge goes, would you want an experienced coordinator like Byron Leftwich or try to swing for the fences for a guy like Sean Payton to fix this? Well, first things first, you got to find out if Sean Payton's willing to leave New Orleans. I know there were rumors that he wasn't super happy there, but here's what I'll say, man. If Sean Payton wants a job with the New York Giants, you drop everything. You rush him here. You get him on the plane, you buckle him in, you make sure he can't get off the plane, and you rush him straight to John Mara's desk. If Sean Payton wants any part of the New York Giants, I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Realistically speaking, I think Sean Payton's going to stay with New Orleans. I see no reason why he wouldn't. They're set up very well in terms of their offensive line. They need a quarterback, draft a quarterback this year, trade for a quarterback. So I don't think that'll happen. As far as Byron Leftwich goes, he's been a hot name, calls the plays for the Bucs, offensive coordinator. To me, it just seems like an ideal fit for the Jaguars. And the Jaguars, because he played for the Jaguars, he's already gone in there for an interview. And the Jaguars are like, if I was a head coach, and if you don't just look at the franchise as a whole, like most people be like, why would you choose the Jaguars over the Giants? But if I was a pending head coach like Byron Leftwich and I was looking at the jobs, I'd be like, okay, Jaguars got cap space. Oh, okay, Jaguars got Trevor Lawrence. Oh, okay, the Jaguars got the first overall pick. I would much rather take the Jaguars job. And with his ties to Jacksonville, I would think, especially based off the fact that they're probably going to want a head coach that's more offensively inclined, being that they have a young quarterback with Trevor Lawrence, I would think that Byron Leftwich makes a lot more sense there.
Yeah, no, I can see that. You can I think the Giants obviously are the more attractive franchise, but you look at the situations, I think Jacksonville probably wins there. There's a lot more to work with, obviously, with the cap space situation, the quarterback, of course, being a generational talent, as they were saying. So we haven't seen it yet, but I think if I had to choose between situations, I'm taking Jacksonville. I just don't know, I just feel like John Mara wouldn't take another, because we know Joe Judge, that hiring was a risk. Obviously, not many people know who he was. I barely knew who he was when we hired him. So I don't know. I feel like Byron Leftwich might be a bit of a risk. He's in his early 40s, I believe, maybe mid 40s at most. And that's another, I feel like if we hire a new head coach, it's going to be a guy with previous head coaching experience. I don't know if we're going to go back to the well of unproven guy and see what happens. I don't know. I just feel like that's it could be like a Jim Caldwell type name who a lot of people say.
People brought him up. I had a subscriber of mine today bring up Marvin Lewis. People laugh at Marvin Lewis, but he was actually a good coach for a bad Cincinnati team. He got him in the playoffs 5 years straight. Jim Caldwell, like you said, Marvin Lewis. Harbaugh's been a popular name people have brought up. You might be right. I could see them going, like you said, not going back if they do fire Judge, not going back to the inexperienced route and bringing in somebody with a little bit more of a background. I agree. I think that's probably what they would do. Ira says, I read the transcript of the Judge's rant. If you guys haven't watched it, please, it's on the Giants YouTube channel. You definitely need to check it out. I read a lot of frustration. I think his loyalty to his boss, team, and coaches has limited his opinion to date. Loyalty is the number one attribute behind success that bosses love. First off, thank you so much, Irishman, for being such a great supporter of the channel. As far as Judge, I think his loyalty to his boss, team, and coaches has limited his opinion to date. I'll let you speak on that first, Mike.
I'm trying to understand it myself. I'm not very good at reading, so
the way that if anybody I think is faulted in terms of having loyalty, I think it's Mara.
Oh yeah, obviously, yeah.
That's what I would say. I mean, Judge to me, to me, he hasn't shown too much loyalty. He just kind of just got here, and if anything, he was kind of thrown into the fire with Daniel Jones and Dave Gettleman. He's been quick to fire guys. He fired Jason Garrett. He fired Mark Colombo, who obviously didn't have too many ties to him. But if anybody who's been too loyal, I would say it's John Mara.
Yeah, it's always been the case. Even, going back to Eli Manning and things like that, it's always been like, once you're in the Giants family, we don't want to get rid of you. Dave Gettleman too, same thing. So, yeah, I don't think it's more Judge. It's probably more Mara of the guy who's too loyal right now, which is a problem. And I don't know if it'll ever change, but I think we're losing enough now where John Mara might have to have his hand forced and hopefully make the changes we need.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have a choice. I'm not saying he's going to do everything that the fan base is, but he's definitely going to do. He's going to at least meet you halfway.
Right.
Nandan, man, thank you very much, man. As a Cincinnati fan, thank you for giving us Eli Apple, BJ Hill. Oh yeah, we went from 4 wins to 10 wins with ex-Giants players. Well, I think Joe Burrow had something to do with that.
Yeah,
I think Joe Burrow had something to do with that. Your receiving core has a little something to do with that. But yeah, Eli Apple's played relatively well for you guys. I know Hill started off really good for you guys. He had a couple of sacks, but I'm going to tip my cap to Joe Burrow, man. There's a guy you want to talk about, a franchise quarterback. And people went talking about comeback player of the year, Mike. That's the guy that you win comeback player of the year for me. He was coming off the injury that he had, and for him to go out and perform the way that he's done this year, he's been damn good the last 4 or 5 weeks in particular. Joe Burrow and Cincinnati, man, they're getting hot at the right time, but I would say Joe Burrow has a lot more to do with it than Eli Apple.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I saw that Burrow has like almost 1,000 passing yards the past 2 games, and we're out here with -10 in 1 game. So I was like, that's kind of funny. But yeah, the Bengals are a perfect example of a team that rebuilds in like 2 or 3 years. It's people have that 5-year rebuild thing in their heads for some reason, but the Bengals did it the right way. And there was a lot of questions about, Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase, and it seemed like they got it right. I remember Joe Burrow in the press conference yesterday was like, you know what? I just got to throw it up there, and Jamar Chase will come down with it. So they've been, working very well over there, and it's pretty inspiring. Hopefully the Giants can try and build something similar over here, but, it's not looking like it so far.
Jamar Chase, to me, has been incredible. I'll be the first to say I was wrong about that. I thought they should have taken a tackle. And Jamar Chase is one of the top 5-6 receivers in the sport this year. He's been incredible. He's made a huge difference. His chemistry with Burrow, I mean, they're hot right now. I gotta give my props to Jamar Chase. That was a great pick.
Yeah.
Pandemonium says, I hope all the DJ haters will have a little appreciation. I mean, yeah. Here's what I'll say, and I don't think I'm a DJ hater. I hated the pick initially.
You're definitely not. No, you're definitely not a DJ hater.
Yeah, I think I've been fair with DJ. I don't think I'm a DJ lover, but I don't think I'm a DJ hater. I think I'm a DJ. Let me see what we got. Yeah. What I'll say is this. I think I agree with what Mike said earlier. Like, just because Mike Glennon's is as bad as this, that doesn't make Daniel Jones a better, it doesn't prove that Daniel Jones is a great quarterback. He's just much better than Mike Glennon. So in terms of that, yeah, they should, I guess if people thought that Glennon was even near Daniel Jones, yeah, they should develop a deeper appreciation for Daniel Jones as a quarterback. I'll say that. And I'm going to go back to what I said today on Twitter. And maybe I'll be proven wrong next year. I hope I am. Whenever I say something, anything negative about the Giants, I want to be wrong. Right now, my assessment on Daniel Jones, and this is my honest and true belief, I think he is good enough to be good on a good team. I don't think he is good enough to be extended on a bad team. And that's what the New York Giants are right now. And to me, it's unfortunate, but he is not proven enough to be worthy of a second contract. He's not proven enough to be even close to being of the top 8 to 10 in the sport at the position. And it's not all his fault. He was set up very poorly. I understand it. The New York Giants set him up for failure. They've changed head coaches. They've changed offensive coordinators. They haven't addressed the offensive line. It's a freaking disaster. And do I think if he was in a better circumstance, he would look better? Yeah, I do. But I don't think just because Glennon's been as bad as he's been, that should, I guess, make people feel like Daniel Jones is suddenly a franchise quarterback because they won some games with him at the position.
Yeah, I mean, they were averaging, 17, 18 points per game with Daniel Jones. Like, it wasn't like it was that much better. It just shows that he's not nearly as bad as his backup, which is like, that's fine. So I didn't watch those games and sit there and be like, oh, well, Daniel Jones, I definitely underestimated that guy. Like, that's not the way I came away with those, performances by Mike Glennon in recent weeks and Jake Fromm. I don't know. I mean, you would hope that Jones is better than his backups. That's pretty much all it is. It doesn't sell me that he's a franchise quarterback or should be extended, of course. And you mentioned it. You're being honest. Like, Jones is not the type of guy to carry his team. He needs a good team around him, and the Giants are not going to have a good team around him by the time he has to be extended. So that's why I think the whole Daniel Jones thing is going to end by next year at the latest. And it sucks for him. You mentioned it. They gave him no stability, no good team around him, and he was asked to do a lot. And that's not the type of quarterback he is. So it's mostly like,
and to be fair, Mike, that's not the type of quarterback most quarterbacks are.
Right. Yeah. There's outliers of guys that can carry teams, but that's maybe 6, 7, 8 guys in the NFL. So, I feel bad for Daniel Jones, but I'm also not convinced that he's a franchise quarterback because of how bad the offense is right now.
Yeah. And my mindset with Jones is the same mindset I have with Judge. Like, if you just look at it, like, is it fair to fire Judge? It's probably not. It's probably not fair to fire Judge. Like, if you just look at all the factors, like everything he's had to deal with, all the injuries, the pandemic, he's only had 2 years. He inherited a bad team, but it doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. And it's the same thing with Daniel Jones. Is it fair? No. I mean, you did not support this guy at all, but he's also a guy that I don't believe and never believed that he was a top 8 quarterback. And I'm a guy that, for me to extend you, I need to believe that. And I'm not saying I can't be convinced of that in the future, but right now I don't believe that. I'm not that close to believing that. So
yeah, I'm not even close to being convinced to extend Daniel Jones right now.
And that's the unfortunate reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill,
man, thank you very much, man. I just spoke with Mara. We decided Mike is the new head of soda promotions, and Chris is the new team mascot. Bill, man, what's going on, man? Thanks for popping in. And maybe next year, Bill, they'll start giving the fans large sodas instead of medium ones. Mike, what they need to do going forward, they need to just give fans unlimited soda for the whole year. If you're a season ticket holder, for what the hell, make it beer. Soda's not even enough.
Yeah, I agree. There's too much bad stuff to watch. You need a beer or two or something. Yeah. It was such a joke, this soda thing. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh my God, what an embarrassment, man! What an embarrassment! Another horrible decision by John Mara. John Kim says, I don't know why Glennon is even starting. Fromm isn't greater, but at least we're going to talk about this in a second. But at least give him more chances, or even Brian Lewerke, who does have an arm. Why is Joe Judge so dumb? I want to send his sorry ass back to Boston to get the blank out of New York. John, what I'll say about Glennon, apparently Mike said before we went live, it came out like 7 or 8 minutes before. Glennon's hurt. Surprise, surprise. Another injury for the Giants. So you're going to get your wish. Fromm is going to start again. And Fromm will probably suck again, but you'll get to see Fromm the last week of the season. That's the way it looks, at least right now. So you'll get it.
Yeah, if anyone plays week 18 fantasy football, just pick up the Washington defense. That's what I have to say about this. Actually, I forgot that Lewerke was a Giant, so I guess he's on the practice squad.
Yeah, we picked him up at the beginning of the year, and he actually looked like okay in preseason. Yeah. So Giants fans got excited. He had a little bit of mobility. But yeah, for me in terms of the quarterback, I'm at the point where I don't care. It's like I know none of these guys. Here's what I'll say. Here's my assessment of the current quarterback grouping of the New York Giants when Jones is not playing. None of you guys should be New York Giants next year. Yeah. I don't care if it's Fromm. I don't care if it's Glennon. I don't care if it's Lewerke. So I don't care who starts. It doesn't make much of a difference to me. None of these guys are guys that I even view as a backup next year. So it really doesn't matter to me.
Do you think Kenny Golladay gets over 12 yards next week?
He didn't even get a target. He didn't even get a catch this week.
Nope.
He might have got targeted, but he didn't get a catch. I don't know. I hope so. He better. Yeah. What a waste of money. And the sad thing is, it's not really his fault.
Yeah, right. A lot of it's not people's fault. It sucks. Like, we can't evaluate anybody because of like just the injuries and the
scheme,
lack
the injuries,
of depth. Yeah,
quarterback play, everything. It's been a friggin' disaster, man. Whatever could go wrong this year did.
Yep.
Lou, man, thank you very much, man. Had to chime in from work. What's going on, Lou? Besides O-line, you need a good O-line coach. All right, here's what I'm going to say. I don't know if you've heard this, Mike, and I'm not trying to break any news.
Go ahead.
Rob Sale, from what I've heard through the grapevine, is gone. Rob Sale is not going to be back with the Giants. At least that's what I've heard. I'm not going to make a video on it. I'm not going to say that it's definitive, but expect Rob Sale to be gone. So expect the New York Giants to be looking for, yet again, another offensive line coach. Now, maybe if Judge stays on, they keep Flaherty. Maybe they promote him, being that he's worked with, former, I don't know. But to me, it looks like Sale is going to be gone, which is unfortunate. I know he's not done the best of job, but he hasn't had much to work with. And the one thing you could say about Sale is Andrew Thomas has gotten dramatically better with him as the O-line coach.
And that's the most important thing too, is getting Thomas to work out. The other parts of the team was like, whatever, it's a bunch of guys we picked up right before the season anyway, so it doesn't matter as much. So getting Thomas to an elite level was the most important part. And as for Rob Sale, just like everybody else on this team, it's not necessarily his fault. There's not much offensive line talent on this team. The Giants kind of instilled confidence in their young guys. I know Lemieux got hurt. Obviously, Matt Parrott's hurt now, but he couldn't even beat out Nate Solder. So the Giants kind of overestimated and were overconfident in their own roster with the offensive line coming into this year, and they definitely backfired. So, Rob Sale did not have much talent to work with, and if he's fired, then it's not a surprise because the offensive line still stinks outside of Thomas, but it's also like the guy had no talent to work with, so I kind of feel bad for him too.
From what I heard, he's not getting fired. He's taking another job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's going
even better.
In college. And he says Aaron Kromer is available. Very good coach. I'll keep my eye out for him, Lou, man. But Lou, man, thank you so much, man, for being such a great supporter. But yeah, that's at least what I heard. Maybe it won't happen, but it kind of makes sense when you see some of the things that Rob Sale said in some of the more recent press conferences. Like, he doesn't give a shit. Yeah. Like he's just like, yeah, Matt Parrott sucks. What was the other offense? Isaiah Wilson. Yeah, he's garbage. Yeah. I mean, paraphrasing a little bit, but that's basically what he said. So it kind of makes sense. Alvin, man, thank you very much, man. I heard a stat. The Eagles in 2016 had a top 5 O-line, and they drafted 8 O-linemen since. Always have to invest in the offensive line. The hardest shoot at the guy. Alvin, you're going to hear me. I'm not going to. Here's what I'll say. For everybody that hates that when I say we need to draft offensive linemen, if they take 2 first-round offensive linemen this year, which I don't think they will, but if they do, you won't hear me say that we need to take a first-round offensive lineman for at least 2 or 3 more years. But I am always going to be a guy that wants you to draft offensive linemen in nearly every draft. Right. It's something that constantly you need depth. You need to try to find value at that position. I just think the need is so dire at this point to set up the future quarterback that you need to get that rectified as quickly as you possibly can. But long term, I'm with you, Albert, man. I'm always going to be for drafting mid-round linemen, even if you get that offensive line relatively situated. And that's why the Eagles won their Super Bowl, if we're being honest, in 2017. They won with Nick Foles, a backup quarterback. They had a great offensive line, and they had a great defensive line. They were great in the trenches, and that's why the Eagles are winning again this year with a team that a lot of people thought wasn't going to be very successful. They're running the ball as well as anybody behind that line.
Yeah, some people thought the Eagles might be the worst team in football, but Dave Gettleman once had this quote, his first press conference, and I actually agree with him for once. He said, big men allow you to compete, and it's very true, especially the offensive line. So the Eagles even had a left tackle bust. They drafted Andre Dillard, I think, 2019.
Well, I actually liked that year. I liked him.
He was a first-round pick. He busted out, and then it's like, they replaced him with that rugby guy, Mailata, right, or something.
And now he's like the best left tackle.
So I don't know. I wish we had what they had. We can't get it right. We draft a left tackle, Bustin Flowers, and then we never replace him. It's Nate Solder. Here's a bag of money. Go be terrible. So it sucks.
Steve, man, thank you very much, man. What do you think about the AB? Oh, God. All right, let's talk about, that's something worth talking about. We could have talked about that on the podcast today. You could talk about that for an hour. Okay, so here's what now that I've been a little bit more informed on the Antonio Brown situation, something came out today. I don't know if you know, Mike. I think Rappaport tweeted it. That Antonio Brown basically is claiming that Bruce Arians told him he needed to go back in after Antonio Brown told him that he didn't feel like he could play in terms of like he may have had an injury and he didn't feel like he could come back in. Then there are some people speculating that Antonio Brown was like due a bonus had he made a couple more catches, and the Bucs were punishing him due to the fact that he faked his COVID. And they were like, we're not going to give you those extra couple of catches. You're going to sit out the rest of the game. I don't know the whole story behind it, but what I'll say, Mike, is this. Regardless of whether, I'll say this. If what Antonio Brown is saying is completely true, Bruce Arians is an asshole. I'll be the first to say that, Mike. But that does not excuse Antonio Brown for doing what he did. And to me, that is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen on a football field. For a guy literally to I felt like I was watching a Chippendales. I felt like I was at Chippendales seeing male strippers. He took off his whole uniform. He throws everything into the crowd. That was embarrassing, but it's more of the same with Antonio Brown. So if anybody in the league was going to do it, it would be him.
Yeah, it was a bizarre situation. I've never seen that before. I think a lot. It just matters about like his mental health at this point. I hope the guy's in a good place. It's like you kind of fear for that, of course.
That, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I choose to believe the part of he was too injured to go back and play, because Brown missed 2 months of the season with an ankle injury. He came back last game and kind of re-injured his ankle in practice this week. Apparently, he played on Sunday, and maybe he re-injured it again. And then he basically was told by the coaches, like, you have to go out there and play, and he was like, no, I can't play. So I don't know if that should result in you taking off your shoulder pads and jersey and throwing everything to the crowd and having this, like, I don't know,
fiasco.
just a whole fiasco. I don't know. Like, he could have handled it better, of course. And
No, I will say, if that is all legitimately true, and I haven't gotten a chance to hear from Bruce Arians' point of view, which I'm sure we probably will.
he would not speak on it, though. They asked him about it.
On
He
it.
was like,
Okay.
he's not a Buck anymore. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, if everything is entirely true, Antonio Brown has every right in the world to be really upset, and it makes the Bucs look really bad.
Yeah.
But I still don't think he should have done what he did.
It's a shame, though. The guy's literally a Hall of Fame talent. He wasted all of his 2019 season, I think, because he had that thing with the Raiders and got cut by the Patriots. So that's a shame. And now he's wasting this year as well. So I don't know. I mean, he still probably is a Hall of Famer, right? I mean, he's got the numbers for it. But
he's borderline. I think had this not happened, I think he definitely gets in, even with all the other stuff. But now, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. He's definitely in Hall of Fame talent.
Right.
I mean, he had a 5-year stretch there where he was arguably like the best receiver ever. I mean, Jerry Rice obviously for a career, but Antonio Brown had like a 5-year stretch there where it was ridiculous.
Right.
J-Man, thank you very much, man. If you see a franchise quarterback, you take him. Agreed. People love young. Did we not see Matt Corral get injured? Can't assume any future player will be available when you select. Tanking in the NFL is not the same as in the NBA. I agree with that. Any draft, if you gotta really like him, but if you are fully committed to this quarterback and you feel he can be your guy and you're willing to commit 3 years, because that's what you're doing if you're picking in the top 5 or 6. It's not like we're picking 20. If you're picking 20, you can move on after a year. It's not like it's a huge financial commitment. If you're picking top 5, you're giving that guy 3 years. So it's a little bit different than if you're picking in the back end of the first round. But if you are really committed, I don't care what draft it is. If you don't have a top 10 quarterback, you take that quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I'm with Jay. You can't intentionally tank to get somebody, because stuff like this happens where the guy gets injured or your team overperforms, and anything can happen. So yeah,
for sure. And Penn, I'm just gonna say strikes back. Strikes back, man. Thank you very much, man. You're settling for mediocrity while expecting the team to achieve excellence. Good luck. I think you're talking about if we keep Judge or if we keep. I don't know what you mean by that, but
Judge and Jones.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I'm not settling. I don't want Jones to be the quarterback after next year if they do bring him back. I just realize it's not going to get fixed in 1 year, and I don't want to force quarterback pick. If they love a quarterback pick, like I said, you take them. As far as Judge goes, I'd fire Judge. I've said that countless times, but it's not my decision, and I think it's at least more reasonable if they keep Judge. Gettleman, there's no reason. And to hire somebody from inside the organization, there's no reason. Mm-hmm. I can't scream and cry if they bring in a complete outsider and that outsider is willing to stick with Judge for a year as they figure it out. And then if things don't start to improve, then he brings in the head coach of his liking. If it was me, I'd want everything new. So I'm not settling for nothing, but I don't make the decisions.
Yeah, they need the wholesale changes, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm fine with that. But in terms of mediocrity, that's why I was pissed about drafting Jones, was the mediocrity factor. I just thought he was an average guy at best, and that's why I reacted the way I did when he was taken 6 overall. So
and so how I reacted. So
you knew that. Like, I knew that in order for Jones to work out, the Giants would have to have a really good offensive line and a couple of really good receivers and a run game, and like that just wasn't happening for us. We were just not, we were not in that position in 2019, and we're not in that position here in 2021 or in 2022 probably. So it's like, that's why it didn't make sense to me at the time.
Yeah. Once again, by the way, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I didn't think I was going to get that many people in this stream because I just made a video earlier today. I was like, Mike, let's just go live because we weren't going to do the podcast. And if you guys have not checked it out, Mike and Tina Talking Sports on Apple and Spotify. If you guys do listen to podcasts, you type that in, you'll find it. We'll have an episode up in a couple of days. We'll be doing a new podcast, and it's going to be mainly Giants, but we're also going to focus on other interests, broad NFL, sprinkling the Giants, the Mets, the Yankees, our other teams as well. So definitely check that out. And thank you to everybody for being here. If you guys have not checked out MikeTooNice, please do so. He's got a great channel. Really good guy. Check him out. Cortez says fans don't really want to tank. It would hurt to watch your favorite team not to compete every Sunday. And Mara hates losing, so he rushes the rebuild process. Cortez, I'm going to disagree with that. I do think there are some fans that would want to tank. There are definitely some fans that want to tank. I am not one of those fans. I will never be one of those fans. But at the beginning of the year, I would say 95% of fans don't want to tank. Some may say they want to, but I don't think most go into a season wanting to tank. But I do remember, Mike, 2 years ago, 2 weeks into the season, people were saying to tank for Trevor Lawrence. So there are fans that do that at damn near the start of the season.
Yeah, I can never go into a season wanting to tank. I always want to win, but like when you reach a certain point of like you're 2-8, 2-9 or something like that, that's when I'm like, okay, it kind of benefits us to lose at this point. I get to a point eventually where if they lose enough games, I realize I go, okay, A, we need changes, and B, I want the higher draft pick because there's a higher probability of getting a great player the higher you pick. So, I hate to sit here and be like, I want them to lose, but like, don't start 2-9. It's not my fault. Like, play better. Like, what do you want from me? So, but to go into a season wanting to tank, that's a bit interesting. So I don't tell people to root for their team though. So
yeah, no, I'm gonna give you my opinion.
Yeah,
but I'm never gonna lecture you on how you root for your team. Marco, man, thank you very much, man. He says I went over our roster today. Then I got back 2 or 3 years, and I got the impression that most of our players get worse the longer they're with the Giants. Yeah, I mean, I've actually said that, Marco. For everybody that's saying that these draft classes are great. I see that on Twitter all the time. Make Joe Judge the GM because these draft classes look really good. Let's pump the brakes. Because 2018, people were saying the same thing about the Dave Gettleman draft. Saquon Barkley, B.J. Hill, Lorenzo Carter, Will Hernandez. Everybody was praising those picks because their rookie years, they look favorable. Especially for third-round picks. Carter had 3 sacks, I think, in his last 2 games. B.J. Hill tied the Giants' rookie sack record. Saquon Barkley won Rookie of the Year. Will Hernandez looked like a serviceable guard. So let's wait it out a couple more years. That's why I always say let's not jump and just say, Joe Judge is this great talent evaluator. Give it a few more years. I hope it continues to grow and Andrew Thomas continues to improve, which I think he will. I think Andrew Thomas is going to be just fine. Hopefully McKinney continues to improve. But I'm not completely sold on these draft classes yet. You need to see a little bit more evidence.
Yeah, I like some of the guys we took recently. Like, that when Kadarius Toney plays, which he's got to play, but when he plays, the kid's amazing. Like with the ball in his hands, he's one of the best top 3 to 5 players in the league with the ball in his hands. And you look at Ojulari, we saw enough production there. He's gotten better against the run than what I thought he would be this year. And Aaron Robinson in his limited time was, looked pretty good.
He made a really nice play this week.
He did. Yeah, him and McKinney, right? They combined for that. Yeah, so, I mean, there are picks, Andrew Thomas and McKinney come to mind as well, the recent guys that, like, hey, we might have something here. So I always try to temper expectations and not overrate our draft picks. I feel like a lot of fans do that. You talk about the 2018 class.
You think?
Yeah.
There were fans telling me that Ryan Conley was the next Luke Kuechly.
Yeah. So I try to be realistic, but I do legitimately believe that Andrew Thomas can one day be a top 5-7 left tackle in football. I do think Xavier McKinney has the upside to be a top 5 free safety in football. Like those guys, I think are legit players. Now there are guys I have to see more from, but like for now, there is some potential. I just wish Toney played more. I wish that Aaron Robinson stayed healthy, of course. So that part of it sucks. We have to see how it plays out, though. So, hopefully better things are ahead for those guys, health-wise.
Yeah, exactly, man. I do like this draft class. I'll say that. And I definitely think Andrew Thomas, if there is one silver lining to take out of this season, it is that. Yeah. And that's a big silver lining. I don't want to discount that. Having a top, like you said, 5 to 7 left tackle in the sport, a guy that as long as he can stay healthy, you could depend on for a decade. That's very important. So if there's one, he's the second most important player, in my opinion, outside of the quarterback. So that is a good piece. Grim says, since he has a bottom 5 O-line too, I don't know, to be honest with you. I know that Mixon's always been able to run fairly effectively behind that line. I don't know. I haven't looked at the offensive line rankings, if I'm being honest. I know they didn't take a tackle in this year's draft. They did take Jonah Williams, right? And he got hurt.
That's 2019. Yeah, he missed 2019. And then,
his rookie year, he was a left tackle, I think. But I don't know how their offensive line stacks up. I can't speak on it.
I'm checking it right now. This is PFF. Run blocking is middle of the pack, and pass blocking is – hold on. Pass blocking is 25th, so it's not that great.
Not that great. Mediocre. Yeah.
But when you have Burrow, who's an elite talent, along with Chase, who's an elite talent, and Higgins and Boyd – like they're gonna figure it out. Mixon's a good running back too. Yeah, so they have enough elite players at skill positions where they can make it work. And they made, they signed a right tackle. Riley Reef was a good signing by them as well. They got Jonah Williams at left tackle. That was a good pick. So, they figured it out. They got their tackles, they got their quarterback, and the rest kind of fell in place.
They have a mediocre line, but that's good enough.
Yeah.
When they don't have a pitiful line. They have a mediocre line that's good enough when you have a guy like Joe Burrow and you have the weapons that they have to be able to get the job done.
Yeah.
Fred, man, thank you very much, man. Hire the new GM. Let him do whatever he wants. Let him choose his own head coach and quarterback if he wants. To me, picking a quarterback in the draft is like rolling the dice. I agree with that, Fred. I mean, I'm going to give you my opinion, but I'm not going to complain if the new GM comes in here and identifies one of these quarterbacks. I will critique him if that quarterback is not a top 8 quarterback in the NFL, because he better be if you're taking him in the top 5 picks. I'm not saying right out of the gate, but, by the third year, from within his career. But if you're going to bring in a new GM, you have to give him full freedom to do what he feels is right. So if they decide that one of these quarterbacks could be the next franchise superstar, I have learned I'm not flipping out. I'm going to give the guy an opportunity, and we'll take it from there. My opinion on it is I do not want the Giants to take a quarterback in this draft, but I also recognize that it's a possibility.
Yeah, I agree with Fred here completely. I mean, it's just we've seen enough of John Mara and his decision-making to know he is not good at this. So I just want them to bring in a GM and let him make the decisions. Will that ever happen? Probably not, but that's my wish as a fan. I just probably won't get it.
So you think, Mike, even if we hire an outsider, say we hire, name somebody.
Ed Dodds.
Let's say we hire Ed Dodds. You think he will still not allow him to take a quarterback if he feels he needs to take one? Because Dodds wouldn't take the job, but let's just say in this hypothetical scenario.
Well, yeah, if Ed Dodds thinks that Kenny Pickett's going to be great, then you let him do it.
Do you think Mara would?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Then that's good. That's a good thing. Not that I want them to take a quarterback, but it's a good thing that he's going to allow whoever comes in, if you feel that way, to come in and make the decision.
Yeah. You would think. I don't know.
But based off of prior history, I definitely understand why people feel like he wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And Pandemonium says, Mike, I think you're wrong. They can't even cross the 50 without DJ.
He's right. That doesn't mean,
yeah.
Doesn't mean DJ's great.
Pandemonium, what I think Mike is saying is Daniel Jones is a huge upgrade over Mike Glennon. But I think what he's saying is that doesn't necessarily mean that he is good enough to push forward with long term. And I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, right. Because the Giants would have to have a great roster around DJ to get the DJ we want. And I don't think they're doing that by the time his contract expires, because I don't think the Giants are picking up his fifth-year option. I'd be surprised, honestly. So you play out 2022 with Daniel Jones, but, how much better can the Giants roster be next year? You might get some offensive line pieces. That would help a lot. But once again, can the receivers stay healthy? Tony, Galladay, can Saquon be healthy all season? That's a big question mark. So I don't know.
You think there's no chance? I don't think they should. You think there's no chance they pick up the fifth-year option?
Knowing the Giants, they would. I'll put it at 10%.
10%. I'll say this. Had he not gotten hurt,
I
think there was a good chance they would.
Much higher, yeah.
But the fact he got hurt, I'd be very surprised if they pick up the fifth-year option.
Yeah, me too.
Donovan, man, thank you very much, man. Do we dare start Brian Lewerke with Glennon being out? He'll probably get called up to be the backup if he's still in practice.
They got to have a backup, so he'll be there, yeah.
I think Fromm will probably start, but knowing Fromm and what we've seen, if Lewerke's the backup, he might play.
Yeah, I think they announced Fromm's the starter, I think, so that's pretty much in place. But if he has another outing like he did the last time he started, then might see Lewerke the second half. We'll see.
Simon says, this team used to get me passionate, lost all of it. I don't blame you. Now they don't get me passionate. I mean, when I'm watching the game, I'm always going to be at least slightly passionate regardless. But I don't – after the game now, I'm just numb. It's just get the season over with. Let's get the – you're not going to see me make ranting videos. This team's not worth ranting over.
Right.
What are we ranting about? We're ranting about a middle school football team. The only thing to rant about is change at this point in terms of the head coach, the GM. But the games themselves, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, my rants are less common these days, honestly. It's tough to be passionate about a team that gives you nothing, So I completely get it. They kind of leave you dead inside. I used to, when they lose games or used to lose games, I used to care a lot more. Now it's just I'm so numb to it. I'm used to it. It's just you kind of expect it at this point. So until my expectations get high again, I'm not going to be fuming after losses because it's kind of expected, sadly, at this point in time.
Yeah. Greg Z says, don't be fooled by Lorenzo Carter's recent play. We need a monster linebacker, not he'll do.
We need to talk about this, by the way, because
I got a good. I want to hear your take on Carter. Go ahead.
No, I have legitimate concerns. I've said this the past 2 videos now that, of course, Carter had the Achilles injury like early last year. He came back kind of soon this year. He's played the entire season. I now fear that Carter is fully healthy, and this might be who he actually is. And I feel like if we let him go, he might go to a different team and be this freaking stud edge rusher. But there's also a chance he's just playing for a contract too. So I don't know which side to take. But
yeah, and I think that's what a lot of fans have told me. They're like, all right, now he's fully recovered, and now you're seeing what he could potentially be. And he was a guy that Lorenzo Carter is the ultimate tease. He has always been that player since he got here that you're like, wow. You know, when you watched him on film coming out of Georgia, when you saw the physical measurables, you saw how fast the guy could move, you saw the arm length, you saw him in instances looking like he could be an upper echelon player. You're like, if he could put it together, this guy could be really good, right. But he's never put it all together. And of course, like you said, coming off the injury, but maybe these last 4 weeks, what we've seen from him is what Carter can potentially be, because he has looked dominant at times these last 3 or 4 weeks. What I'll say is it's a win-win situation for me. I'm going to tell you why. If I'm the Giants, option 1, there's not a lot of interest out there due to his past injury and past, I guess
lack of production.
Yeah, lack of production, right? And you bring him back on a cheap 1-year deal, which I would. 1 year, $7 million. I don't know, something cheap. Option 2, a team sees the upside in him, and they're like, I'm going to take a gamble on this. And we've seen this before. The Packers did it with Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith didn't have a ton of production with the Baltimore Ravens due to the fact that he was kind of buried on the depth chart there, went to the Packers, had like 13 sacks. But if that happens and a team picks him up and they pay him a lot of money, what do we get, Mike? We get a comp pick.
Yeah.
And you get a high comp pick if he gets a lot of money. So either way, if he could come back on a short deal, a cheap contract, and somebody's not willing to overpay, it'll pique my interest. But if somebody's willing to give him a lot of money, the way I look at it, okay, we'll get a 3rd or 4th round comp pick. You let him go. I wouldn't give him a multi-year contract. Yeah,
my question to you was going to be, you said $7 million. My question was going to be, would you sign him for a 1-year, $8 million prove-it deal? I guess you would.
It depends on, I guess, the rest of my budget with the team and where I need to fill other holes. I wouldn't be opposed to it, a 1-year deal, because you could look at it the same way. If he comes back on the 1-year deal and he performs really well, and you still don't want to sign him to a long-term contract, again, you could get a comp pick the next year, or you could trade him from within season if the team is really struggling and he's got like 7 or 8 sacks and you have a team that's in play. So I wouldn't be opposed to a 1-year deal if you feel like he could build off of what he's done, but I don't want to give this guy a 3 or 4 year contract due to the fact that he hasn't been consistent. He's had injury troubles.
It will be interesting to see if there's a team out there, as you said, that buys into it and gives him like a 3-year, $30 million type deal, which would be crazy in my opinion. But you never know. Like sometimes GMs see certain things, and it wouldn't be shocking. But I just want to see like if there's a team out there that really values Carter to give him that much money. And if they do, as you said, we'll probably get a higher comp pick, because like I think comp picks work like if you don't spend money and other teams spend money on your players, you get a higher comp pick. I don't see us spending much money this offseason, so that probably work in our favor there. So that's good.
Hopefully Evan Ingram gets the biggest contract ever for a tight end.
Yeah.
Get those comp picks. We're going to need them. But Greg, man, thank you very much. Will, man, thank you very much, man. My first Giants game at Washington earlier this year, it was traumatic. I know Joe still have nightmares about that game. I'll never fully recover. Will, man, I'm sorry to hear that. We lost, but that was actually an entertaining game. It was a good game, but obviously a traumatic experience for the way that it ended. And I still, everybody thinks about the Dexter Lawrence play and everybody thinks about the drop ball by Slayton, and those pissed me the hell off. But the one part of that game that I think a lot of people forget about, I still can't get over. And I know that it was the beginning of the year and our defense has gotten better since then. Not that it's great. 2 plays, 75 yards. 2 freaking plays, 75 yards after we scored. They let him go right down the field and score a touchdown.
Yeah.
The defensive performance in that game was pathetic. It was pitiful. Terry McLaurin completely undressed James Bradbury start to finish.
That's true. Was that the drive where it was like McKissick wheel route versus Crowder?
The wheel route the first play, and then they scored a
like
touchdown on the next.
Ricky Seals-Jones, just random ass guys. Yeah, it was terrible. It was weird because we expected to have a great defense at that point. They kind of got lit up by the Broncos week 1, and we're like, all right, it's a fluke. And then they, gave up like 30 points to Taylor Heineke. But I guess that game got me excited in a way because I thought that was kind of like maybe the Daniel Jones / offense breakout game, and then that kind of didn't really happen exactly.
And then he had a good game against the Saints too.
Those 2 games got me excited, and after the concussion, he kind of just like
the Cowboys game, everything went to hell when we had all the injuries, and it just went to hell, man.
Yep.
Jihad, Matt, they were much, man. If Kadarius Toney could play this week, they should say screw it and start him at quarterback. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I guess the only thing you worry about is a potential injury, but honestly, probably would give us the best chance to win, not with him throwing the ball, but just running a consistent wildcat. You saw the Giants resort to that like 6 times this past game with Saquon Barkley playing that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. Maybe not full time, but run 15, 16 plays out of the wildcat with Toney there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was completely healthy.
Did you see how bad that pass was by David Montgomery when he tried to throw that touchdown?
Dave Crowder came up with the pick.
That was ugly, yeah. So
it looked like a Tim Tebow pass where he jumped up. Yeah, it was horrible. John, man, he says your cap casualties and who do you want to bring back? My cap casual. Okay, so guys that the Giants are going to cut. Riley Dixon's gone.
Got to get the list up.
Yeah, Riley Dixon's gone. I think Martinez is gone unless you could work out an extension. And they might look to work out an extension, but coming off the injury, $14 million to keep him, $5 million to cut him. You saved $9 million. You could draft an interior linebacker in like the first or second round of this year's draft. I would guess he's gone. Shepard's going to be gone, especially with the injury he suffered late in the season. That's going to save you $4.5 million. And Bradbury's a possibility. I think they'll work something out with Bradbury, but they might try to work out an extension where they pay him a little bit less, on a per year average.
I want to keep him, honestly. I want to keep Bradbury. Yeah,
I do too. I think he's played better throughout the course of the year. I just don't love him at his $21 million salary. But I think for sure the guys I mentioned would probably be the guys for sure. Maybe there's a couple others. You're looking at the list right now.
You say Kyle Rudolph?
Oh, Rudolph's a guarantee as well.
Yeah.
$5 million if you cut him.
We talked about Nick Gates. That's the interesting one. I don't know what they do with that one. Save $3 million, basically. You
could cut him and bring him back on a cheaper salary.
Yeah.
I think it all depends on how he looks in terms of his health coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part, who do you want to bring back? Probably no one.
Might be Lorenzo Carter, depending on the contract.
It all depends on their market. It all depends on the market for these players. Like if Evan Ingram has no market, but he will. If Will Hernandez has no market, maybe, but he probably will. Somebody will probably be willing to sign him to something. So teams are desperate for agency. They overpay for players. We've done it plenty of times.
Oh, yeah. We're a prime example. Absolutely.
So maybe Carter, I guess, if it was for the right deal. But I don't think that Peppers is gone. I don't think the Giants are going to be re-signing many players.
Yeah. I mean, I like Ingram. I've always liked him. It's just it's got to go. It's
not any money.
It's enough mistakes. Yeah, we got to move on.
We're gonna backload more salary. And the other thing you got to figure, the GM that's coming in's got no attachment to these players. He's gonna backload salaries to be able to retain some players that he's never had anything to do with. Get your comp picks. Let these guys go. Get your comp picks. Tom, man, thank you very much, man. Thoughts on Zoe Carter's last few games? Yeah, we're just talking about it. Is it too little, too late, or do you try and bring him back on? Yeah, we answered that, Tom. I'm sorry. We already answered that. But, for the right deal, I definitely be willing to bring him back on a short deal. And that's the chicken and the egg. With the Giants' luck, it's a fluke if we keep him. With the Giants' luck, if he goes somewhere else, he's going to become the next Greg Lloyd or the next Derek Thomas. He's going to be like the greatest player ever. But I'm leaning that I actually agree with Mike. I think not that I think he's as good as he's been the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I think he's a better product than we saw throughout the majority of the season because he was coming off that injury.
Yeah, he was a non-factor first 7-8 weeks. But, I kind of fear losing him now. I want to keep him. I'm not keeping him for like a multi-year deal, as you mentioned. But if it's 1 year, absolutely, I would like to bring him back because I'm afraid of missing out if he's turns out to be a really good edge rusher. So can't lose that.
It happens all the time with us. Simon says, Dave Gettleman talks about O-line yet put all his faith in this one. Hey, I mean, we can talk about Gettleman for hours. He tried to address the offensive line in the past. It didn't work. I mean, Nate Solder was a complete disaster. Will Hernandez has not worked. Kevin Zeitler was an good trade, but then they let him go. Andrew Thomas worked, and outside of that, not much else. It's that, and I think that's why. I mean, a lot more than just that, but I think that is by far the biggest reason to get rid of Gettleman is because that was all he talked about in his opening press conference, and the line's not any better than when he took the job. Outside of the fact that you have a cornerstone left tackle, but that's it.
He knew it too. He said at the first press conference, we got to fix the offensive line. Let's be honest. And just hasn't done it. He gave us a left tackle, which was great. That's definitely, the biggest part of it. But the other 4 guys are not worth really caring about. So it's just crazy how this past offseason, even in August, like they had a press conference and they were confident that this offensive line was good enough to, last the entire season and keep Daniel Jones upright and open holes for Saquon Barkley. And like, it's just, we as fans, like, we're kind of like, are they sure this offensive line's good? Like, because we didn't think it was that good. And, the fans
the only word I always used in my streams leading up to the season was I hope. I hope they're right and I'm wrong. I hope they're right and I'm wrong. And then obviously once they sustained the injuries that you did, you knew you were in trouble. Like once Lemieux goes down and once Gates goes down, it's like they're racing to get guys like Billy Price. It's like, we're in trouble. But it is what it is. Stanley says, do you guys think Thomas Dimitroff, the ex-Falcons GM, could turn this Giants team around? To be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about him. People have brought him up to me before. I don't know a whole lot about Thomas.
What was the timeline? When was he there?
I'll look him up right now.
They had some talented teams in Atlanta for a while. Not defensively, but offensively.
I thought what's his name? Pioli was the guy that when they went to the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. But let me look. Maybe he was an assistant to Dimitroff. He as an executive. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh, so Pioli was the assistant. He was the general manager. He's been the Falcons GM from 2008 to 2020. So he was there for a long time. He was there for 13 years. And he started with the Patriots. He was director of college scouting from 03 to 07 with New England, and then he's been the GM for the Falcons from 08 to 2020.
They were always competitive though. Like from 2008, like Matt Ryan's first 10 years or so, they were always competitive, always in the playoffs. They never won the Super Bowl. They should have, but it was only until the last couple of years they really started to suck. Like 2019, 2020, the Falcons started to get bad. So
the Falcons have been a consistent playoff team. I mean, obviously having Matt Ryan helped, but which he was a part of. So I mean, he's qualified. He's been a GM in the league for 13 years. He's a guy I'd at least bring in for an interview. JJ says trade back 5, get another 1, get Cross with 8. Oh, he's talking about the draft. Trade back 5. Okay, trade back out of the 5th pick. Get Charles Cross with the 8th pick. Okay. So you're saying get Charles Cross to tackle with the 8th pick, trade back the 5 pick, get another 1 if there was a deal in place for that and it makes sense and you're getting the proper value and you like a player that you could get at the slot that you're dropping back to, that to me is the move that the Giants should make if it makes sense. Now, of course, we say that as fans, and if one of these players turns out to be a superstar, we're going to complain just like we did this year when the Giants traded at 11, and then you got Micah Parsons looking like the next superstar, and you got Rashawn Slater looking like the elite left tackle that he is. So you could still lose if you do that, but it does make sense if you're going to look to try to acquire a quarterback in the following draft.
Yeah, I don't know much about this Cross guy. I've not done any draft research, and I hate myself for it, but I'll get to it eventually. But I said this earlier. I'm fine trading back one of the first round picks. You got to set yourself up for the quarterback class in 2023. We're not too confident Daniel Jones is the long-term guy. So if you get yourself extra picks, it's probably the best situation for the organization to be in.
Yeah, and Willie Bum Bum says anything other than fixing the O-line equals wasted time. I'm not going to say wasted time. I think there's other needs we need, but I think
if you get like a prime edge rusher, that's not a waste,
But that is by far, in my opinion, I'm with Willie Bum Bum on that is by far the biggest need for this team right now. And it's just I guess people just have a different philosophy. I think most people agree that it's the biggest need, and a quarterback as well. Some people would certainly say, but I think most people think that positional group as a whole is the biggest need on this team. But I think the difference in philosophy is some people feel like it should be attacked a different way than others.
Right. Yeah.
And I think fans like Willie Bum Bum and fans like myself are so infuriated with the lack of the inability for the New York Giants to be able to build this line over the last 10, 11, 12 years that when you are staring it in the face, your solution, where you should not have to worry about this line. Because, Mike, if you get a bookend tackle and you get a good center or a good guard, the other pieces should fall into place. Like if those guys are upper echelon offensive linemen, which they should be if you're drafting them that early in the first round. So I think that's what Willie Bum Bum thinks, and that's what I think. Now, I'm not saying don't pass up on an elite talent. Like if you have Aiden Hutchinson graded out as a Nick Bosa-like talent and he somehow falls to you at your first pick, of course. But under the right scenario, I am completely for trying to address that offensive line as quickly as possible in this draft.
Yeah, I can't say wasted time because if we got ourselves a great edge rusher or a coverage linebacker finally or a great slot corner, that's not a wasted pick in my opinion. It's just people have different ways of building teams. And like there's not one specific way to build a team the right way. Like teams do it the right way by completely rebuilding, but there's also teams like the Rams that trade all their first round picks and still find a way to be successful. So there's not one particular way to build a team. It's just the Giants always did it the wrong way, which is why I was never a Gettleman guy. So they always did it the wrong way, but there's many different ways to build the right team. So the Giants, of course, were used to it because our offensive line has been terrible for a decade. So, you know, if it's like, if you ask me, would you rather have a right tackle or Russell Wilson? I'm taking Russell Wilson if it's like 1 for 1, but
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it depends on what the question is, but I would love to get a great right tackle. I would love to get a great center. And if you can find some decent guards, I think it'll all work out. You know, you can't have a first round pick for every offensive line position. You could, but it might take another couple of years. So, you know, the offensive line is very important though. It can't go underestimated. And, you know, hopefully they finally figure it out eventually because they finally have the ammo to, you know, draft those guys. And as we said, it's a great offensive line class. So this is the year it could finally happen.
Yeah. When I look at this class and like you, I've done some research on it, but I haven't like, you know, I've done enough research where I could probably do a mock draft, but I haven't like, you know, really dove into like the prospects that I really like. But the feeling that I get from a lot of people is outside of the offensive line, the draft class is and obviously a couple of high-end edge rushers. The draft class is relatively weak in terms of the skill position. There's like 3 or 4 first-round wide receivers, but there's no like Jamar Chase. There's no quarterbacks that are being thought of as like a Trevor Lawrence. So if there was ever a draft for a team to go out and maybe double up on the offensive line, I would think it'd be this one, especially being that seems to be one of the strengths of this draft class. So we'll see what they do. I mean, there's going to be a lot to talk about this offseason.
Right.
Pandemonium says, so Mike, does Cincy have a good offensive line, wide receiver, and a good running game?
It's an average offensive line, really good wide receivers, and the running game I think is pretty good, right? Like I don't know what Mixon averages per game. I could look real quick, but
last I heard, I think Mixon had like almost 1,200 yards, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I thought I heard that, but their receivers are obviously top notch.
I'll pull up team rushing yards per game and see where we're at here for the offense.
Mixon's got 1,205 yards, averaging 4.1 yards a carry and 13 touchdowns. So.
Cincy is only 20th, I think, in rushing yards per game. So it's not like great, but they do pass the ball a lot. So you have to, you know, put that in consideration. Like obviously teams like the Colts and the Eagles have a lot more rushing attempts per game than the Bengals. So they're going to, you know, by osmosis have more rushing yards. It's just how it works. So
right.
Based on volume. Yeah.
So there you go. There's your answer. Their average to slightly below average offensive line, top, I don't know, high-end wide receiver core, and
top 3.
And a very serviceable running back. So they got a good cast. They got a good cast for Burrow. There's no doubt about it. And Burrow's definitely a really good quarterback. Let's see what we got. Irish Rover says, I retired after 44 years working to the DOD. Gives me more time to tune in. I enjoy these Chris and Mike streams. Nice to listen live. I appreciate Rover. Well, maybe we'll do this. I mean, what I was thinking about with Mike with our podcast, maybe we'll just do it live in the future, but it'll be more, you know, we'll have it pre-planned so it's an easy listen in the podcast format. We'll figure it out. I know a lot of my subscribers have told me that they like the live format on YouTube because they want to be more involved. I think this is fun. I mean, some people prefer a podcast. The number of my subscribers have told me that. If it was me, I'd prefer something like this. You get to tune in live. You get to converse with people from within the chat. You get to converse with your content creators. So this is my preference as well, Irish. I think we're both just trying to branch out and do different things.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's just, I'm a podcast guy. Always been a podcast guy. I love putting on a good podcast, and I drive a lot for work, and, you know, my commute to work's 45 minutes, so I'm just like always just chilling in the car. I don't listen to music these days, so I'm a big podcast guy, but it is always fun interacting with people that, like, you know, view us. So it's like, you know, I don't know. I like both of them. So if we could figure it out somehow and find that medium, then that's great. Yeah.
Timothy says, I'm probably late on the Judge talk, but I'm done with him. Never trust a guy that wears 3 hoodies in the middle. Yeah, Timothy, I think I would say right now, just based off there are definitely some fans that are not done with him, but I think it's like 85-15. I think it's probably similar to Shermer. I think it's about the same, and I probably feel about the same in terms of, like, I think with like 2 weeks to go in the season, I probably felt the same way about Shermer, whether or not he was going to keep his job, as I do now. Like, I definitely didn't think it was a sure thing they were going to fire him, but I was slightly leaning that they were. And I think it's similar to the way I feel right now about Judge. But I still think it could go either way. And I see arguments for both sides. But I think the majority of the fan base is with you, Timothy.
Yeah, I saw Talking Giants put out a Twitter post of like, do you want Judge fired? And it was 80% yes, 20% no. I was kind of surprised. I expected more to be yes, but I guess 20% want to give him another shot.
I think that's about what I had expected to be at this point, just because the team has been so bad for so long. And yeah, so Will, man, thank you very much, man. My friends, I hope all is well. What's going on, Will, man? It was a pleasure getting to meet you at the Giants game. I know Chris's opinion, but Mike, and I think Will told me actually that he found me off of you. So he started watching you first.
Thank you.
Yeah, he says, what should we do with our 2 first-round picks?
I don't have names for you, unfortunately. But I do want to get the right tackle spot figured out. And if they think there's an elite edge rusher, I'm taking right tackle and edge rusher. But if they get a great trade back opportunity, I'm not opposed to that either. Because I've said before, I want to stack up draft picks for 2023 if they want to trade up for a quarterback. So it's either right tackle, edge rusher, or right tackle, trade back. So that's what I want to do with
and then trade back, you take BPA.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to be there when you're picking once you trade back. Similar to this year when we ended up with Tony. Grim Solo, man, thank you very much, man. Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the league by 5 sacks. My point was a really good quarterback can overcome a bad line. Russell Wilson has done it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he's really good, yeah.
If he's elite. And Russell Wilson has certainly been elite for years. The goal should not be to have a shitty offensive line for your quarterback, though. Yeah. I don't care how good the quarterback is. The goal should always be, let's not make him overcome a really bad line. Why do you think Russell Wilson wants out of Seattle?
Yeah. There's too much rain.
So, yes, can great quarterbacks overcome less than ideal circumstances? Sure. But that's
why they're great.
But a good organization should not make that like you should. If it was me, the second you draft a quarterback, you're trying to protect him.
Yeah.
So that should not be the goal. But yes, can certain quarterbacks overcome less than ideal circumstances better than others? Yes.
I think all teams should do that, though. When they draft a young quarterback, they should throw pretty much all of their assets at the offense. And that'll tell you at least if the quarterback's good or not. Because I think the Jets kind of did a good job of that. They took who'd they take? They took who the hell's a left guard? It's got 2 last names. Vera Tucker. That's it. Vera Tucker.
And they took Becton.
Elijah Moore, Becton. They signed Corey Davis. Like, they're throwing everything at the offense and just trying to help Zach Wilson. They got Michael Carter, the running back. They got Tevin Coleman, the running back. So, like, that's how I want to do it. And Joe Burrow kind of had the same thing. They took Burrow. They already had Jonah Williams, who missed the first year, of course. They signed Riley Reif. They got Jamar Chase, of course. Like, they pretty much are throwing everything at the offense and just seeing if the quarterback, floats or sinks. And if he's a good quarterback, he'll be fine. And then you figure out the defense. So that's kind of how I would want the Giants to build their team if they go with a different quarterback in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm so with you, and it's why I want to double up on the line this year, because I want to start building that offense for the quarterback that's probably going to ultimately come in 2023. I want to have something set up for him this guy to have an opportunity to get the most out of him. Sure, if you find this great quarterback, can he overcome what we have now? Maybe. But that shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to set this up as well as we possibly can. Danny, man, thank you very much, man. Stand up, new member. Welcome to the squad, man. And Viva says, I like DJ, but he is bad at checkdowns and finding an open receiver. Plus, does real bad under pressure. I know the O-line is bad, but there were times when he had time but made bad decisions. I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that. I mean, for being fair, every quarterback's going to make bad decisions here and there, unless you're Aaron Rodgers. But I do think that's fair. And one thing I will say in terms of the checkdowns, I actually think he's gotten better at that. He was horrible at that at the start of his career. If you remember, I remember that people used to talk about that all the time between him and Barkley, because Eli checked it down to Barkley all the time, and Jones's rookie year, he was bad at that. I think Jones gotten a little bit better at that. As a matter of fact, at times, I feel Jones looks for the quick route more than he should. You know, a lot of times when plays break down, I think he looks for like the first option that he could throw to rather than looking down the field for the big play. But I think the biggest knock on Jones right now, outside of his durability, is his ability to scan the field.
Yeah, he has problems reading defenses and kind of stays on the same receiver for too long. And then obviously that's why interceptions happen. Like the two Rams game interceptions and the Chiefs one was just him staring down the same guy. You can't have that. So I looked at like his clean pocket numbers, and some people don't know, you know, it's like a clean pocket's up your own interpretation, basically. So it's like, I don't know what the word is, but like basically
there's no like strict formula for it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, but his clean pocket numbers, Daniel Jones, were not that good either. It was like he had an 83 quarterback rating and like an 8-7 or an 8-5 or something touchdown interception ratio. It wasn't that great. So like he's, you know, does Daniel Jones have a great position to succeed? No, but he also does stuff wrong on his own, which I don't think some people like to acknowledge, but it's the truth, and we're just being honest about it. So hopefully if we actually draft a good offensive line this year, then that can help him develop better habits, because you mentioned it, sometimes we'll get rid of the ball too quickly and whatnot and not let the big play develop and all that, but that could be because he's just so used to getting hit too quickly that it's kind of being like just a natural instinct.
Got a mental clock.
Get rid of the ball quick, because I think when he was drafted, he was good at holding on to the ball for a while and finding like the big play, but now after 3 years of this crap, he just wants to find the first guy.
I really believe part of it's Judge too.
Yeah, and Garrett.
I think when Judge came in here, Judge made it a point to be like, listen, you can't turn the ball over. You have to like be ultra conservative in terms of making sure you don't turn the ball over. That's just I don't work for the Giants. That's just the way I feel since Judge has gotten here. I think the offense, and of course, I guess Garrett as well, but I think the offense has been ultra conservative, and you've seen more of a, I don't know, like a robotic conservative quarterback. Like he doesn't.
It's boring. Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Watching our offense sucks.
Yeah. Brandon says, what about Ingram? What will he fetch in a comp pick? I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what his market's going to be. I don't know what he'll be able to sign for. The way that a comp pick works is you have to be one of the top 5% in terms of free agent salaries to be able to get a third round. Then I think it's 15%. My guess would be to get a fourth or a fifth, depending on what his market was. We'll certainly get something for him if we don't spend a lot in free agency. We'll get something for him.
Yeah,
there's going to be a team that feels like they could get a lot out of him.
I think fifth is realistic. Fourth at most. I don't see third.
Not a third. Not a third. The last guy that got us a third was Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And he signed a record-breaking salary.
That was the Matt Parrott pick, right? I think.
Yeah, that was the Matt Parrott pick. Yep. John, man, thank you very much, man. Honestly, kind of felt bad for Judge after his rant. Must be infuriating trying to perform with a team mostly built by the worst GM franchise history and a scouting department full of. I agree, John. I think there are things that are fair to be critical of, and I think it's fair to want to move on from Judge. But I'll be honest. As I was watching it, did I feel some compassion for Judge? I did, because of some of the things that you just said. I did. I could see that the guy is clearly frustrated, and the other thing I'll give him credit for is he is going above and beyond not to destroy his players, which I like. I think a head coach should do that, and so in a way, I did feel a little bit bad for him. I'll be honest, John. I did it during that press conference.
Yeah, I'm going to die on this hill that Pat Shurmur and Joe Judge were set up for failure. I'm not going to lie. I think they were. It's very hard for a coach to do anything with the rosters that have been given here. And I do believe Judge had a lot more say in personnel than Shurmur did. But, like, still, it's like that was 2 years to build a good team, which is, he already took the franchise quarterback before Judge got there, already took Barkley before he got there. So at that point, how much can Judge really do when the most important positions are decided? So I don't know. It's just I feel bad for Judge. It doesn't mean he's actually a good head coach, but he was also given like a crappy situation. So
it's kind of like how you feel bad for Jones. It doesn't mean that you think Jones is worth keeping long term.
That's the thing. Like, people always want to just solely blame the offensive line. I think it's possible to have a bad offensive line and a below average quarterback. That's what I think the Giants have. So it's, it's not great, but that's how I feel.
Yeah. Gettleman says, after cutting one or two linemen in free agency, oh, you're saying, should we sign one or two linemen in free agency after we make some cuts?
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think maybe you could sign one. Like you might be able to sign. Yeah, you might be able to sign like a stopgap guard.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
To replace Hernandez. I could see them going that route. You're not going to have the budget to sign two, but you might be able to, like, similar to what we did at the right tackle position for years when we signed Cam Fleming. We signed, what's his name the year before?
Jamon Brown.
Jamon Brown. He was guard though. Jamon
Yeah.
Brown. I'm thinking of
Remmers.
Remmers.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but I think they could do something like that. I think they could sign a veteran guard on similar to what say the Ravens did with Zeitler this past year, but a 1-year deal rather than a 3 or maybe a 2-year deal. But I don't see them breaking the bank on a free agent. They don't have the money. I don't see them breaking the bank on a high-end offensive lineman in free agency.
Yeah, that was going to be my exact answer. Is I think they sign a veteran guard for about $5-6 million per year and hope it works out, because you can't. It's going to be hard to replace all 4 offensive line spots in one offseason. It's possible, but
no,
I would assume
realistically it's not possible.
Probably not.
Yeah, yeah. You have to at least bring in competition for like Shane Lemieux, or a guy that could start over Shane Lemieux. So yeah. I think that will. If I had to guess, I think they'll probably sign like a moderately priced interior offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Bryce Bad very much says, I think he meant to say sup, cutie. What's up, cutie?
Better be talking to me.
You didn't have to donate again. They wrote sup with a.
There you go.
Bryce, thank you very much. I hope you're a female. Let's see what we got here. Tom says, any idea what quarterbacks are in the 2023 draft class? There's plenty. I mean, Bryce Young is the biggest one, but then you also got the kid from what's his name up the top? He's I was just looking at the 2023 draft class the other day.
I gotta look this up.
Yeah, there's 3 quarterbacks that are in the top.
Oh, it's Ohio State guy, right?
Yeah, and then you also got a kid from Florida who's being mocked high. I think Anthony Richardson. I think, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look real quick. You've got C.J. Stroud is the Ohio State kid.
Oh yeah.
Then you got Bryce Young, and then at least this mock draft has Anthony Richardson, who he's played limited with Florida, but he's being mocked relatively high right now in a lot of the mocks. So 3 high-end quarterbacks right now, but the 2 biggest obviously being Young and Stroud.
I just know it's supposed to be a better class than this one, so you might as well wait. Don't force it.
Yeah. Nick, man, he says we need 3 linemen. People writing off Gates like nothing. I'm not writing off Gates. I'm just not depending on him.
It's hard to depend on him.
I'm not writing him off. I want Gates to come back and be the greatest lineman of all time, and I want him to get his opportunity to do that. But I need insurance. I mean, the guy's
a great story.
Yeah, the guy's coming off 7 leg surgeries. We can't go into next offseason being like, yeah, we know Gates is going to be one of our starters, like we did this year with Lemieux and Parrott. Like, you don't even know, even if Gates can play, you don't know if he's going to be the same player. You can't rely on that, right? It's the same. Yeah. It's similar to Conley. When Conley went down with the injury, he came back, didn't look like the same player. The Giants cut him. So there's no way that I could know for sure that Nick Gates is going to be a starter for the Giants next year. They have to bring in some returns. This
is more extreme, but even like Victor Cruz, when he got hurt, serious injury, was never the same guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Simon, thank you very much. You know what worries me? We're going to have the same team next year because of cap and contracts, and they do good but not enough. Then how do we act next offseason? We'll take it one step at a time. I'm not worried. I mean, if we're good, I'm going to be happy. I don't know what your definition of good is, but good to me is making the playoffs and having a winning record. I'll be happy if we do that. And then we try to build off that the following season. But if we win 6 or 7 games and you're kind of in no man's land, like Mike said earlier, even if we're picking 10, 11, you do everything in your power. If you like a guy like C.J. Stroud or one of these quarterbacks, to move up and go get your guy. I mean, the Eagles did it with Carson Wentz. If you really like a quarterback, there's a good chance you're going to be able to get one of these guys in the next draft. I don't think we're going to be picking like 20. So that's why I'm not too worried about it. If they really like one of these guys, you do whatever you can to go up and get them.
That's what sucks. I think it's a 6 or 7 win season next year probably. And, at that point, you're looking at a pick from somewhere from 6 to 12. And, I don't know. You got to trade up for a quarterback eventually. So they might do it in 2023.
Yeah, and we'll see. And if we have a really good year, maybe Jones is really good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I expect it, but he could be.
Right.
MY Giants 26, man, he says, was Wes Steinberg Twitter true? No. Wes
is always right. No, Wes bats 1,000, bro. He don't miss.
I love Wes. But yeah, don't get fooled. Wes is a parody account, but
unfortunately.
Unfortunately. He's probably my favorite account on Twitter, but yeah, don't believe anything he says.
He's hit on some stuff like randomly though.
He has.
Yeah.
John, man, thank you very much, man. No matter what I'm taking Linderbaum, there are no other talented centers in this draft. There are plenty of tackles, edge, and guards. you could take after Linderbaum, but my first 2 picks are Tyler and Nakobe Dean. I'm going to disagree with that. And I love Tyler Linderbaum. Tyler Linderbaum is one of my favorite players in this draft so far. There's never been a center that's gone higher than like 13 in the history of the NFL draft. I'm fine with breaking that record. Like if we're picking 9, I'm okay taking Linderbaum, but I wouldn't take Linderbaum with our first.
With the Bears pick, probably, yeah.
Yeah, if we're picking like 9 or 10, I'm completely fine with taking Linderbaum, but I wouldn't take Linderbaum with the first. If we're picking an offensive line with the first, it's got to be a tackle.
Yeah, I haven't watched this class, as I mentioned 100 times, but there's got to be other centers, right? It can't just be one guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's far and away the best one.
Yeah.
But, I think what I saw, there's a couple of guys that are projected to go in like the late second round at the center position. And a lot of times guys that are projected to be guards become centers and vice versa, interior offensive linemen. But
wasn't Nick Gates the same way, right? He wasn't a center in college.
Gates, I think, might have been even a tackle in college.
Yeah.
And then he played guard for the Giants initially. Then he played tackle. Then he played center.
Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Say it very much, man. If getting pressure isn't realistic, then we need to shore up our middle linebacker and linebackers in general. Earlier in the season, we would get beat by tight ends, even on Peppers. We've been getting beaten by tight ends for the last 15 years. And I think that's, people ask me all the time, what's our biggest need on defense? I mean, obviously, most people jump at the edge rusher, and it probably is. We don't have a premier edge rusher, but I think inside linebacker is near equally important, especially in today's NFL. Having a guy that is a versatile player, like he said, that could cover. You could take away the tight end position. You could blitz up the middle. Micah Parsons, a guy like that. And I know they kind of use him more as an edge rusher, but he's a player like that, a guy capable of playing the inside linebacker that you can move around, a versatile piece. Isaiah Simmons, not to say, I definitely wanted Andrew Thomas more than Simmons, but a player like that, a guy maybe a little bit more in the build of a linebacker. He's a little bit undersized for me, but that type of player, I think it's so valuable in today's NFL.
That's why I always wanted to move Peppers to linebacker, because I saw the Cowboys did that with Keanu Neal, and not to say he's having a great year, but like it's transitioning more to like a smaller league, right? So the linebackers are not like 260, 270.
You need more speed. You need more speed on the field.
Yeah, exactly. You need more speed. So guys like Isaiah Simmons are not. It's not the typical linebacker build, but like those guys are now thriving in the NFL. Micah Parsons, because their covering skills are awesome. So we saw even Micah Parsons had a coverage on Kenny Golladay. He prevented a touchdown. So if you have a linebacker that can do that, then that's very valuable to a team, obviously.
Yeah. George says, had this epiphany. Belichick leaves Patriots and joins Giants as GM. Okay. Belichick and Judge go on to build the greatest team ever. P.S. high on the hopium. You must be high on something, man. People have brought up the idea of Belichick to me in the past, and listen, that'd be great. I mean, I know you came up with the Giants. He has so much respect for this organization. And anytime you hear in other videos Belichick talk about the Giants, you could tell he's getting goosebumps. He's tearing up like he loves this organization. But how old is Belichick? What is he, like 70? It's not. Here's my thing. Belichick is obviously the GM and the head coach with the Patriots. But if he's not going to coach the players that he drafts, is Belichick a great GM? It's not like the Patriots have drafted great over the last 6 or 7 years. Belichick's the guy that gets the most out of his talent because he's the coach. Right. I ran into the same thing with Phil Jackson with the Knicks. I don't know if Belichick would be a great general manager if he wasn't coaching the players he was drafting.
Well, the proof is out there this year. Do you see how much money they spent in free agency? I mean, you don't do that if you draft well. So
right, Hunter Henry. Yeah, they 2 tight ends they signed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Judon was a lot.
Yeah, they spent more than the Giants.
Yeah,
which is almost impossible.
That's tough to do.
Yeah. Bryce, man, thank you very much, man. Evan Neal would be a blessing, and then a good corner or pass rusher at 8. But of course, by the way, I want to say I wouldn't be upset if we got Belichick. It's Belichick, but I just don't know if he'd be as effective. But thank you for the donation, buddy. Bryce says Evan Neal would be a blessing, and then a good corner or pass rusher at 8. Oh, does that make me happy if that happens? You're not going to see me upset, man. The only thing, and Mike, you said you haven't done a ton of research yet on the prospects, but from the limited research I've done on Evan Neal so far, and I've watched him play a little bit, the thing I worry about with him is the Mekhi Becton thing. The guy is massive. The guy, I think he came into college at he was like 385, 390. So he's had weight fluctuations similar to a guy like Becton. So that's the only thing I worry about with him is the potential injuries, but I'm not going to be scared to draft the guy based off of that. But that's something that you have to at least have in the back of your head. But Evan Neal is widely regarded as the tackle with the most upside in this draft. So if you end up with Evan Neal and you get a high-end defensive player, I'm not going to be upset with that.
Yeah, I get afraid of like the just gigantic guys because of the risk of injury. Like I prefer like a Tristan Wirfs type build, but like if he's a great player, he's a great player. I'm not going to bank on a future injury that may never happen. So
people talk about Linderbaum and they worry about that he's too small. He's like 295. Does that worry you at all? To me, it doesn't. He could always pack on a little bit of muscle when he gets to the pros.
Yeah, NFL is different, right? So it's not a concern for me.
Yeah, and he's so quick at getting to the second level. Right. Stanley says, thoughts about Kenyon Green. He's another guard that a lot of people love. He's the highest graded guard in this year's draft. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take him with the first pick, but if he's there with the second pick, I'm on board with taking an interior offensive lineman with the second of our first two picks. If we're taking an offensive lineman with the first, I'm going to want to tackle. But second pick, Kenyon Green, Tyler Linderbaum. If you're going offensive line, those are going to be the guys that we're going to be looking at, Stanley.
Well, me and you talked about potentially a stopgap guard. So obviously, if you can draft someone better, we'll take that over, the stopgap guy. So we'll be happy with that.
100%. Junior says Giants nightmare came true. Dallas and the Eagles are in the playoffs. Yeah, the only silver lining out of what happened yesterday for me, because it looked like Dallas was going to play the Eagles, and then you're like, oh crap, one of them is going to get to the divisional round.
Yeah.
Now at least they're not playing each other, which I guess they both could win, but I don't think that'll happen. The Eagles are going to play more than likely. I don't even know who the 2 seed is, the Bucks or the
Rams, maybe.
Rams probably.
Cardinals?
I don't see them beating them.
I don't know.
And the Cowboys will play the Cardinals. It looks like so. That's the good news, I guess, with that. But yeah, obviously not a good look to see both those teams make it, and hopefully they're both knocked out in the wild card round, Junior. Could you see the Eagles pulling an upset because of their ground attack?
Yeah, I was gonna say I could. Yeah, sadly, and their defense is kind of good now, so I could see it.
I wouldn't pick it, but I wouldn't be shocked because I feel like they have the type of team they can't. I don't think they could win 3 playoff games to get to a Super Bowl, but I could see them picking off one team because of the way their team is built.
Yeah, if a team's not prepared and takes them lightly, I could see it happening. Yeah,
which would suck.
Yeah.
Kyle Mann, he says, I remember being shocked when we didn't use any picks in the last draft on offensive line. Even if Gettleman liked the line, we had injuries happen regularly. We were all shocked. I mean, I think each and every one of us, Mike, expected them, maybe not in the first round, but definitely to take at least one, probably 2 offensive linemen going in that draft. And he put his faith in the young lineman. It didn't work.
I was shocked after round 3, never mind the whole draft. I was like, seriously? What are we doing here? So
yeah. And Aaron Robinson, I think, is going to end up being a good pick, but
yeah,
should have addressed the line. Tudo, he says, all bad owners hire bad GMs and bad GMs hire bad head coaches. Bad head coaches brings in all high-paid garbage players who can't get anything done. Tudo says it starts at the top. What's up, Tudo? Thanks for popping in. Going to talk to you guys for a couple more minutes, then we're going to close it out. I got to eat dinner. I'm sure Mike's got to eat dinner. I didn't want to go more than, 6:15 and 6:22. Take a couple of your comments here, and then we're going to close it out. Once again, thank you to everybody for being here. I always have so much fun doing this with Mike. Mike's a great guy. Be sure to check out our podcast, Mike and Tana Talking Sports. We'll be on Mike's channel probably next time we do this on YouTube. Definitely next time we do this on YouTube, we'll be on Mike's channel. So go over there, check out MikeTooNice. Let me pull up a couple of these, man. Eagles are facing the Rams at the moment, but are most likely going to face the Bucks in the wild card round after week 18. Yeah, I'm not sure the matchups for all the teams. I don't think they'd beat either team, but I think they'd stand a chance to beat. Who do you think they'd? I would say the Bucks are probably there. Even some people may call me crazy for that because of Tom Brady, but the Bucks, I don't know, man. They just seem like they're falling apart here towards the end of the season.
It's funny. We did that podcast, the first one we talked about playoff teams. I feel like I cursed the Bucks because I picked them to come out the NFC, and ever since then, it's like Antonio Brown goes crazy again, and Chris Godwin tears his ACL, and Shaq Barrett's out for the year. It's like
and they should have lost to the Jets. I mean,
yeah,
they're going in a little shaky right now.
Yeah.
So
I could see it's possible for the Eagles to pull off that upset, and I wouldn't pick it, but they can also get pressure on Brady too, which is a big aspect of beating him. So
I hope not, man. You're making me really upset. Darian says Philly winning the Super Bowl. Andrew Thomas is going to suck next year. Abrams GM, Judge stays, and we draft a cornerback. What could go wrong? New York Giants 2021. Darian, don't you ever say that again. None of that better happen, okay, Darian? Especially the Eagles Super Bowl part and Gettleman coming back. None of that better happen, man. But I don't think the Eagles will win. I think the Cowboys I worry a little bit more about than the Eagles, but I don't think either one of them are going to win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You just got me depressed, man. Any decent tight ends in 2020? I have no idea. I have no idea in terms of the 20. I don't know. But we are going to need a tight end. I will say that. That's a need that we don't really talk about that often. We're going to lose Ingram. We're probably going to cut Rudolph. We're going to need a tight end.
We'll get Levine Toilolo back. He's the guy.
Oh, God. What do you guys think the chances are we retain Peppers? I won't say it's impossible, just not likely. The only way I could see us bringing Peppers back is if it's similar to like the Logan Ryan thing, where it was a 1-year prove-it deal coming off an injury. That's the only way. If there's any market for Peppers, I think he's gone. Also, Mike, I don't know if you saw what Peppers said on Twitter. He kind of like threw a backhanded shot at the Giants a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember reading him being like, all right, he's probably not coming back.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, I doubt he said something about, I think it was the game. I think it was the game against the Eagles the first time. And I didn't know to interpret it, whether or not it was Kitchens, whether or not he was talking about Judge. But he said when you get more power, things don't always work out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
he had a metaphor for it, but I don't remember exactly what he said. But I doubt Peppers is back.
Yeah, he would have to take like a 1-year cheap deal. He's probably getting more money elsewhere. So
yeah, the only way would have to be like a prove it 1 year and there's no market because he's coming off the injury type deal. What's up, Authentic man? Thanks for popping in, man. Who has been worse, Judge or Gettleman? I mean, I have to go with Gettleman.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah,
been here longer, and Judge had to inherit at least part. Obviously, I'm going to make Judge equally responsible for Gettleman over the last 2 years in terms of the free agent, because I think we all agree they've been working collaboratively. But he inherited Daniel Jones, he inherited Saquon Barkley, he inherited Nate Solder. So all those players from the 2 previous years, Judge has nothing to do with. But what you could, I guess, the devil's advocate to it could be. Some people may say, well, Gettleman's drafted some pretty good players. Maybe Judge isn't getting the most out of them. But to what I'll tell you is I don't think Gettleman built the roster the right way. If Gettleman ever got this offensive line the way he said he was going to, these players would look a lot better.
Yeah. No, it's Gettleman. It's not even close for me. I mean, I feel like Judge, hasn't completed year 2 yet. I know it hasn't looked great, but at least we saw promise in year 1. But, Gettleman may go down as like one of the worst GMs of all time. Like it was that bad. So I can't really I can't put Judge in that category yet. And at least for Gettleman, his tenure's over. Judge may not be done yet if he's back next year. So it's Gettleman for me.
Yeah, it has to be. He's been here longer.
Yeah.
Nikki says, happy birthday to Eli Manning. I didn't know it was his birthday.
I saw that, yeah.
Happy birthday to Eli Manning is right, man. My all-time favorite Giant. My all-time favorite athlete. I love Eli Manning. Nick the Quick says, would you be shocked if we draft a wide receiver from Penn State in the I don't know enough about him, but what I'll say, Nick the Quick, is I wouldn't be shocked if we draft a wide receiver. I think we will. I won't say definitely, but I think there's a good chance we'll draft a wide receiver. But I don't think it'll be in the first 2 rounds. I could see a mid-round, 3rd, 4th round type wide receiver. But if they draft a wide receiver in the first round, I'm going to flip out. I don't want a wide receiver in the first round. But 3rd, 4th round, I think it's possible.
They're going to need a Sterling Shepard replacement. So if that's the route they want to go, I can get behind it. Not the first round, though, as you said. That would kind of drive me crazy.
Yeah, better not. Not. Chris, thoughts on Sauce Gardner? Y'all need him badly. Lockdown corner in the making right there. I don't know enough about him, Cowboy Nation, if I'm being honest. I don't know enough about him quite yet, but I will say we need a corner. We're going to need a corner. I don't know if we're going to need a corner next year, but we're going to need a corner. You have to figure Bradbury's not going to be here that much longer if he's back, and Adoree Jackson's only had 2 more years on his contract, so we're going to need a corner soon, but it's not an immediate need for this football team.
Right.
Let's answer like 2 more, and then we're going to close it out. Young Leo says, do you think we're going to see – we are. It's been announced.
Yep.
Fromm's going to play. Glennon's out. So he's out with an injury. So that's the reason why Fromm's named the starter.
I don't have much confidence in him, but he'll get the shot.
Jesse says, did Saquon's great game yesterday prove to you, like it did to me, that he deserves an extension and that he is still a great player?
I think he deserves another year, but extension?
Yeah,
no.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I never doubted that Saquon was still a great player. Never doubted it. I think he's recovering from an ACL tear. And I think most players not named Adrian Peterson, it takes another year for them to get back to what they hopefully could be. Now, of course, he's got to stay healthy. The guy's had a ton of health concerns. And also, I don't think the Giants have used him the right way. Also, he doesn't have a good offensive line to run behind. But I'm not saying he's looked himself this year. He hasn't. But he's coming back from an ACL tear, and I don't think a lot of people take that into account. I still think Saquon Barkley is going to end up being a good player in the NFL if he can stay healthy, in terms of him getting an extension, the Giants can't do it. Can't do it. Now, for people that say they want to trade Saquon Barkley for like a 4th or 5th round pick, I disagree with that. I'm going to say why. I would rather, and I don't want Saquon here long term. It has nothing to do with Saquon. I love Saquon. He's my favorite player on the team. But I know this guy's going to command money, and I know the new general manager coming in is going to have no ties to Saquon. And it's been proven countless times. You don't need the greatest running backs to have a great running attack. You need to build up that offensive line, and it just doesn't make sense to pay a running back top-tier money when you don't have a good team to begin with. But what I will say about Barkley, I think it makes a lot more sense rather than taking like a 4th or 5th round pick to bring him back, hope that he can perform much better behind a strong offensive line, and either trade him in season or let him play out the year, and then you could either get a comp pick if he has a great year, a 3rd or 4th round comp pick, probably a 3rd if he has a great year, or you can franchise tag him for another year, so you don't have to have a long-term commitment. You could take the Le'Veon Bell route where you give him a 1-year commitment year over year, but you don't want to give him that long-term extension.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you just don't want to sell low, is what.
I don't want to. I selling him for a 5th round pick to me is crazy.
Yeah, I only want that to happen because it ensures we don't extend him, which I still fear might happen. I don't want to give. I
understand that side of it, but I just don't think it's. I don't think it's a smart decision.
It's not. No, that's the only reason is to avoid the extension. That's all I care about.
But the thing, if you're a fan listening, like Mike, and I understand what you're talking, why you'd be scared of that.
Mm-hmm.
Gettleman's gone. If you're bringing in an outside GM, I don't think an outside GM is going to look to extend Saquon Barkley to 2nd contract. He may get the Le'Veon Bell treatment, which I could see a situation where it'd be acceptable. The only situation to be acceptable is if you move off Daniel Jones, you bring in a rookie quarterback, and you're like, okay, I want to provide him with Saquon Barkley for the first year or 2 of his career. So, to give him that weapon, but I'm not giving Barkley a 3 or 4 year contract. I'll give him a year extension on the franchise tag, but I'm not committing to him long term. But I really don't think a new GM is going to commit to Saquon Barkley long term. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, but my concern is John Mara, though, because John Mara, I'm sure
that's true with the face of the franchise thing.
Face of the franchise, says the right things, and sells jerseys, sells tickets, all that crap. So yeah, that's another concern. It's not just Gettleman. It helps to get him out the window or out the door, but yeah, it's not like
So you would rather than risk the Giants signing him to like a record breaking 2nd contract, you would just take a 5th round pick right now.
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, because like, how much are you really getting for him?
The Patriots gave up a 2nd round pick for Mohamed Sanu. Yeah, like in season, you might find a team that's desperate and be like, if Saquon Barkley's playing like his rookie season, they might be like, if we get Barkley, we might be able to win a Super Bowl. Like say the Buffalo Bills next year. I know people have talked about them on Twitter because they don't have a running attack. Say they beef up the offensive line a bit, and mid-season trade deadline comes around. Barkley, man, that piece.
I like that idea. Yeah, I'd rather wait. But at the same time, they also have to build up the offensive line, which I don't know if I can trust the Giants to do. But if Barkley comes back next year and is running for 4.8 per carry and stays healthy, looks good, you're getting a lot more than the 5th round pick. Not like a ton, but like you might get that 2nd round pick, late 2nd round pick, but it's better than 5th round. So it's probably worth waiting for. But I just know how detrimental it would be to extend a running back for, 12, 13, $14 million per year. It's just not what this team needs. So, but I guess it's the smartest idea to wait. You're right, for the trade deadline.
Yeah, no, I'm not selling this low. I'm bringing him back and taking it year by year. But if they're next season, if he's playing great, team's not doing so hot, and there's a good deal there, I'm ears. I'm listening. But thank you to everybody for being here. I got to eat dinner. I'm starving. Let's see what we got here. Eric Powell. Listen, I love Saquon Barkley, but I got to be objective. Saquon Barkley's my favorite player, Eric Powell. He says, I'm done with you people. He does more than stats. What has Saquon done? What has Saquon? Let's be fair. Let's be fair. What has Saquon? Saquon Barkley is my favorite player in the NFL. I own his jersey. I will go to war for Saquon. I've dealt with fans all year that tell me that Saquon Barkley is a disaster, that he sucks, and I've combated all those fans. I think they are not taking into account that he's coming off an ACL tear. What in the hell has Saquon Barkley done to earn an extension for 4 years, similar to a guy like Christian McCaffrey? Do we want a mascot? Do we want a guy that's going to put up fantasy stats? Or do we want to win football games? Is it smarter to invest that money into the offensive line so you could bring in guys, mediocre running backs like New England does, and be able to have a great ground attack? Or to spend that on Saquon Barkley when we don't have a good team to begin with? I'm about the team. I'm not about the player.
Right.
And,
That's
and
the
extending
problem.
Saquon Barkley on a 4-year, $15 million a year contract for a team built the way that we are, we'd be crazy to do that.
People are too much about the player, not the team in that situation. They want the Barkley thing to work out so badly they'll do anything to justify it, which I don't get why we're still arguing about this 4 years later. It's obviously hasn't worked out. So I don't know.
But you're not going to vote for him? No, I am. I'm also being logical. I am going to vote for him. I think he's a great player. I think he'll be a great player.
I mean, like, does he pass block well? Is he receiving?
When I don't have an offensive line, right now it doesn't make sense. Maybe I'll feel differently next year. A team as bad as the Giants, why in the world would it make sense to pay a guy that's come off 2 injuries, one of which was an ACL and MCL tear, at a running back position?
Yeah, I'm not giving a running back big money unless I'm competing for a Super Bowl. And newsflash, we're not. So
I gotta be honest. I love him, but I gotta be honest. But guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for all the support, and yeah, see you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.